told you we'll do it live.
Yeah, that's it. We're live. These guys are excited. I'm excited. I hope you in the chat, the anticipation hasn't killed you, but has only made you excited. We're a little bit late, all right? So sue us. We're here. We're ready to put on a show. We got tons of great topics to talk about, and we're going to talk about them all next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And you know what it is. It's Thursday night, which means I've got the crew of all crews with me. I've got Coach filling in for Vish, and I've got Larry with us tonight. What's up, fellas?
That's not Vish?
That's not Vish.
That was last week's joke.
Larry, you can't recycle the joke, Larry.
You realize we streamed on all three channels last week, right? Like, you can't take the same joke and bring it over here because it's also on your channel again.
It was just so damn funny last week that I thought maybe I'll bust it out again. What's going on, fellas? Big day down in Santa Clara today. They could have used you guys down there today because they barely had enough guys to practice.
Yeah, it was bad, right?
Ridiculous number of guys sitting out practice.
Yeah.
No, just to give you a rough idea, no Armstead, no Dwelly, no Mitchell, no Luter, no Burks, no Hargrave, no Mooney. Basically.
Hargraves, Mooney, Armstead. That's who I've heard.
Armstead, Banks, Burks, Dwelly, Hargrave, Mitchell, Mooney, and I don't know about Greenlaw, and Burford was limited. So there you go.
Well, I mean, it sure as hell looks like we're getting ready for the second half of the season. Getting ready for the playoffs. The boys are, I don't know if they're getting vet days or they're getting vet days or getting rest days, but from the looks of it, it looks like these guys are kind of ailing a little bit of bumps and bruises from a 5-game winning streak.
Yeah. I mean, they're playing well. Mm-hmm. Things are going good. They're the number 1 seed, but yeah, they're, Coach, that old saying says this time of the year, everybody's hurt. Tell me when you're injured.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody's healthy right now. Everybody's got a bump, a bruise, a bump, a cut.
Something that they're playing with.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about these injuries. I mean, from what I understand, Greenlaw is going to play. He's missing practice, but he is scheduled to play from what it sounds like, or at least what the word is from the building. But I do think that there's a good chance that Armstead's going to be out again. They said that it could be a 2-week thing initially. So it sounds like he'll probably be out. Maybe they're without Hargrave as well, or as Shannon Sharp calls him, Jerome Hargrove. They'll be without him potentially. And then Charvarius Ward. We know that these injuries are here, and we know that the Cardinals are not the best team, but they are 2-2 since Kyler Murray's come back. And you can be a lot better than a team, but when you have a ton of injuries, it kind of levels the playing field. So, Larry, I'll start with you. Are you concerned at all if those 3 don't go, Charvarius Ward, Hargrave, and Armstead, that brings the 49ers back to the pack enough to make this game at least interesting?
No. My bigger concern, Jesse, is that they get to the playoffs with a less than 100% Greenlaw or without Greenlaw. So, I think they're pretty loaded at linebacker. I like Flanagan Fowles. I like Curtis Robinson. I like the 2 rookies. And I was trying to, kind of flesh that out with Wilkes today a little bit. Do you like Graham? Do you like Winters? Because I know Greenlaw is going to go, and he's going to try to go. But to me, there's a handful of guys that the Niners have got to have at full tilt to get this thing done on the back end in the playoffs. And that would be like Debo and obviously CMC and Trent offensively, maybe Kittle. And then on defense, it's Warner and Bosa and Greenlaw. And if you have a healthy Greenlaw and a rested Greenlaw, I think the Niners are going to be hard to beat. So I would err on the side of conservative, and I would I think the Niners can beat the Cardinals without Greenlaw. I'm not saying they could win with all their backups or anything, but I definitely think that they don't need. They could rest Greenlaw because they've got quality depth there, and go with other guys. And that's what I would do. I would try to hold him out. You want to not? I would I'd sit him this week. I'd play him next week, and then if you get that win against the Ravens, I might sit him another week. But I'd rather have him for the biggest games, Ravens, playoffs, than have him for this game.
So even without Greenlaw, Hargrave, and Armstead, you're not worried about them stopping the run if all three of them sit?
Well, I like some of the other guys. I mean, I like what I'm seeing out of Givens. I like what I'm seeing out of Kinlaw, Kalia Davis. I mean, I don't feel great about it, right? Armstead is,
of course,
but
Right.
I think they can win this game without Armstead and without Kinlaw, or without Armstead and without Hargrave. And Mooney is a concern, but they just signed Jason Verrett. They like what they're seeing out of Darrell Luter. We're in that part of the schedule, guys, where the Niners may have to lean on the youth. They're going to have to lean on Kalia Davis inside. They're going to have to maybe lean on young DBs. They may have to lean on a couple young linebackers. And this would be the part of the schedule where they probably should and could do that. So I'd like to see them try it. I know a lot of people are saying, "No, play your best, play your best." I don't know. I want to see them. I want to see more of a healthy contingent against the Ravens, and I want to see hopefully a full intact team come playoff time.
What about you, Coach?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I understand that right now we want everybody to play because we do have the number one seed. So we got to keep the main thing, essentially. We have to win out, right? I understand that we got everybody else dealing with their own druthers of the season, but for what it's worth, we can't afford to lose a game, especially a divisional game. So this one counts. Yeah, I do tend to say that this is the one where coaching is going to have to get us through. You're not going to be able to lead with your best guys because you're left with two decisions, essentially, right? You're saying to yourself, all right, we've got requisite talent that's going to be out. All right. It's going to be a clear dip in production. But at the same time, we're playing a team that is, ranked 31st off defensively and 19th offensively, respectively. So this is the time where you lean more on your coaching and you let younger guys to go ahead and get the reps that they need, because losing a Dre Greenlaw or an Eric Armstead or somebody earlier into the season, right? I mean, later into the season now, before we get to the playoffs, could deem as catastrophic. So yeah, I lean with what Larry's line of thinking is that it's time for us to see what the young guys got anyway. And if you think about it, last week we saw a bit of that anyway with Eric Armstead being out. We got a healthy dose of Javon Kinlaw and Kalia Davis playing. Kalia Davis was left a bit more to be desired, but at the same time, this is what we need to do because you think about it, the bigger issue is what? Let's just go ahead and say for what it is. I didn't see this coming, but we have hands down the best roster in the NFL right now.
Yep.
There's not a team that is better than them. So now we have to figure out how are we going to calibrate with A, paying what we have, B, figuring out who's worth the money versus their age and their talent, and C, how much development are we going to get out of the young guys that are eventually going to replace them? And what type of reps can we steal along the way at any time to get proof of concept to A1, see if they're worth pushing off of what we need, because that's what good teams do, right? We pushed off of Kwanzaa Alexander when he was a big-time free agent acquisition where we leaned on Dre Greenlaw, right? Where we leaned on Fred Warner. And these are the times where we pushed off of these guys where, quite frankly, none of us knew, but the organization knew early. So that's how strong rosters stay ahead of the game is they play their young guys, they develop them, and they get them pushing forward, where when the rest of the league is paying high price for a guy that we've essentially moved on from, we've got his replacement in tow. Games like these is how you get to that solution, right? So yeah, It's not going to be one of those games where we can come in with the best of the best, the tip of the spear of what we got. But to be quite honest, we shouldn't have to, right? This team is not good enough for us to worry about that. And now is the time for us to rest our starters, all right, for the latter part of the season and the postseason, and to see what we have out of our young guys. So yeah.
Yeah, I do think that there's an element of, and I talked about this early in the week, blessing in disguise, where you do get to get a sneak peek at some of these young players, get them that development, and also not only for the future, but they might need them in this year. What if a player goes out mid-game and misses half of a playoff game or has to miss a playoff game? We're starting to see that the 49ers probably have a lot more depth than what we initially thought going into the season. I know, Larry, we talked many times about concern, depth on the defensive line. Well, some of those mid-season acquisitions, they fulfilled that. And then I think we had some similar concerns about the offensive line as well as the secondary. And I think the depth in all three of those has improved as the season's gone along, which is great because now you're needing to lean on some of that depth. So I don't think long term I'm overly concerned about it. I guess what keeps creeping into my mind is at some point you can even things out with talent if enough people go out. And the Falcons game last year is what keeps popping into my mind, where it was like, okay, they went in there without 3 or 4 defensive starters. And then throughout the war of attrition in that game, they lost another 4, and it was enough for them to lose the game. Now, the big difference is the offense this year is in a much better spot. You've got Brock Purdy instead of Jimmy Garoppolo. You now have a CMC on this team. He was not there for that game. So I think offensively, if they have to get in a shootout, it should still be a very winnable game. But the more players that don't play, and we've seen Connor kind of run ruckshaw on our defense before, well, all of a sudden you start moving 3 key cogs out of the middle of that defense. I think things can get a little bit interesting. I'm not picking Arizona. I would still pick the 49ers to win and probably comfortably, but at some point things even out. So something worth looking at, I guess.
It's all, there's that old saying, Jesse, next man up. Well, it sounds great and everything, but it's really all dependent on who that next man is. So like Oren Burks is out, next man up. Well, next man up might be D Winters or Jalen Graham. I feel really good about that. I really do. I'm not concerned. But if next man up is, now not to beat up on this guy, but Josh Johnson from last year, now now it's more of a saying than anything else. But I just look around the field. I mean, Ronnie Bell may have to play a little bit. Jordan Mason down the stretch here may have to play a little bit. That's okay. I think I want to see him. Robert Beal may have to give it a go. Graham, Winters, Darrell Luter, Jair Brown, of course. Some of these draft picks, some of these rookies are going to have to step up and be willing to play. And maybe even a couple guys off the practice squad. Maybe a Taylor Hawkins might have to step into the breach and show what he's got for a game. So, I mean, I just think that it's almost inevitable over the course of, if you're really intent on playing into February and going to the Super Bowl, it's almost inevitable that you're going to have to, utilize that depth and kind of take it for a test drive. Do you want to do it in the playoffs, or do you want to do it on the way to the playoffs? And right now they're kind of on the way to the playoffs. And then the other thing, like Trent Williams made the point a couple of times to us in the last month, that there were times where he played where he feels like he shouldn't have played, and that Colton McKivitz would have been a better option against the Rams when he had I think it was an ankle that he was battling. So then it's a matter of like, do you want Hargrave at 60%? Or is it better to have Givens at 100% or Kalia Davis at 100%? You want Oren Burks at 55%, or do you want D Winters or Jalen Graham at 100%? So it's going to be on the coaching staff to get these young guys coached up and ready to roll come Sunday. And I'd lean on the youth and try to get to the playoffs with as much of my big time guys rested and ready as possible.
Yeah,
I see it as a win-win.
I do
too. It's a win-win.
I do too, because you might have to use those guys anyway. You may as well use them against Arizona and find out what they got. And you know what? I suspect that Jalen Graham isn't good, but great. And I think D Winters might be better than Oren Burks. And I know Burks has played really well, so I know that's a big statement. But I don't think that there's a huge disparity between what Burks is going to give you and what like Flanagan Fowles or Winters or Graham's going to give you. I just don't. So we'll see. We'll see who's out there come Sunday.
Well, I mean, you guys have seen him. You know, this is proof of concept because you guys have both been to training camp, right? So you guys have seen him. And from your perspective, I mean, the way I see it is nobody gets a free ride on this team. I've learned that over the years. Nobody gets, especially with this regime, right? But as you move forward, you have to say to yourself, all right, well, we looked at training camp. You guys have seen more of D. Winters and Jalen Graham versus Oren Burks than all the rest of the fans have. You know, you guys have a unique perspective. So in my mind, right, outside looking in, right, I haven't been to camp. Am I saying, tell me if I'm wrong, guys. Am I looking at Oren Burks maybe got the bump over D. Winters and Jalen Graham because he was more of a special teams asset and could cover more of the 53 rather than, you know, a Jalen Graham and a D. Winters who are great, well within their own skill set of being a linebacker, but they're just not pros yet. Versus the difference between being a pro and being a player is, you know, most guys come into the league and what? They play a position, right? But you know, the NFL isn't about playing a position. The NFL is about playing football. So Oren Burks makes most NFL rosters, not necessarily because he plays linebacker, but because he's a special teams mate, right? So where do you guys see the bridge between Oren Burks and Jalen Graham and D. Winters? Where's the gap where you would see why they went with Oren Burks over them? Because what I'm hearing from both of you is that these guys are better, or you necessarily don't feel as though there's that much of a drop off. So why Oren Burks? Why did he get the nod?
Well, I mean, I think it's I think the short answer is run fits, right? Like Graham's going to make some incredible plays. He's fast, he's instinctive, but he may pick the wrong hole, and you may see somebody go for 75 yards, you know? And as far as I asked Wilkes today specifically about Graham, because I think Graham is potentially great. I don't even think he's good. I think he's a future All-Pro or Pro Bowl. Well, not All-Pro maybe, but Pro Bowl. I think he's a Pro Bowl caliber linebacker. And he said that Winters is ahead of Graham because Winters played linebacker full-time at TCU, where Graham at Purdue played kind of a hybrid. He was a safety who transitioned to linebacker. So he thinks he's a little bit behind Winters, and he doesn't pick things up quite, or he hasn't picked up the defense quite as fast as Winters. So Winters would be ahead. But I think it's, you know, if you said Winters versus Burks, I think Burks is maybe was a little bit more dependable early in the year. And I think it just comes down to consistency with being in the right run fit, right hole at the right time, the right spacing. But now that was July, you know, and that was August. Now we're in December, and, you know, D's watched a ton of film. I just talked to him Wednesday, and, you know, he's ready. If he gets this opportunity, he's ready to roll. He's watched a ton of film. He's talked a lot of ball. He's worked with Johnny quite a bit. He feels a lot more confident than he did this summer as far as being able to play from scrimmage. So if Burks can't go, and it doesn't sound like Burks is going to go,
Right.
then Winters and you know, Flanagan Fowles can step in there. And I don't think they're going to miss, you know, I'm not saying they won't miss any. There will be no drop off, but I don't anticipate a big one.
Yeah, Graham, for me, I know the quarterback thing was like the big talk of training camp, obviously. But anybody who watched my post-practice shows,
Right.
I try to talk about Graham every day. And he was like my main talking point coming out of that whole training camp situation when I did my overall recap of the days that I was there. I said then, the only agenda I'm pushing here is the Jalen Graham agenda, because that kid is really, really good. He's the only one that in the one-on-one drills was consistently winning. I charted something like 55 one-on-one passing drills And the defensive player won, I think, a total of 4 times out of those 55 reps, and he was 2 of them. So I think he does have a ton of potential. That doesn't mean he's necessarily ready now. I can see why they would go with a veteran in Oren Burks, but I think long term, I do agree with Larry. I love what Graham brings to the table. So I would like to see him out there for sure, but it sounds like he's a couple notches down the depth chart, and that's, a little unfortunate, but.
Well, that's what I mean. The only reason why I asked is because what you guys just relayed right now is how I felt throughout the preseason, throughout camp. I felt as though, like, man, like Oren Burks is a guy, and he covers a lot of real estate as far as what you need to utilize out of a 53-man roster, right? But I kept hearing about Jalen Graham. I kept hearing D Winters seemed to like come in early near OTAs, if I'm remembering this correctly, because I have a unique perspective, right? Like I wasn't at camp, so I'm literally going off of what you guys are telling me, right? I'm hanging off of every word. I just started my YouTube channel at the beginning of the season, right? So for me, it always came off as though that D Winters came on early, right? Especially in rookie OTAs and minicamp. Then as camp started progressing, then we put the pads on. D Winters is maybe his conditioning and maybe his body, he's just not really there yet, but he showed a lot of promise. But the guy who seemed to be kind of like turning heads from start to end, I think Jalen Graham came on a little late, but Jalen Graham, man, I heard about all of the plays he was making. I saw him playing in a couple of preseason games, especially the Denver game. Like, I just want to know, like, what's the hubbub? Like, what is keeping him back? What would you see is holding him back? Because usually when you get guys like him, where Jalen Graham rather is, they get drafted late, they come in late, and once they pop on film right away, immediately the first thing you're asking to yourself is, all right, so where's the flaw? Where's the flaw? This kid got drafted late. He's come in, he's showing immediate production. What is it about? There must be something, right, about this kid that made everybody just take their hands off. What would you say is that flaw or that area of their game why Jalen Graham wasn't automatically just given like the BA treatment, so to speak? Like, yo, you're on the field. We can't keep you off the field. You're here.
He played this position at Purdue that they called the star position, right?
Right.
And so he was kind of a hybrid safety linebacker role. And so I think most people, Coach, thought that he needed a little bit more bulk and body mass to stand up between the tackles as an NFL linebacker consistently. But he plays faster than he timed, and he timed 4.64 in the 40, 1.68 in the 10-yard split. And he was very productive. I mean, he was all Big Ten player, honorable mention, I think, one year. But I mean, this guy makes a lot of plays, and there's no hesitation in his game, and he's very athletic, and he can wrap up, and he can
the
finish.
Downhill guy.
Yeah, and he's instinctive, and he's got energy and physicality, but he just needs to get a little bit bulkier, a little bit stronger without losing the speed, I think, to be an every down backer in the box. And he's got to improve some of his hand usage and some of the technique and that kind of stuff. He's a little, 50-50 on the run fits, and that's why you saw some big gash runs in the preseason, because he's he kind of sees it and goes, and there's some, he'll miss on a run fit. He'll get in the wrong hole at the wrong time. He doesn't recognize the blocking patterns sometimes around him as quickly as like a Flanagan Fowles will, or maybe even Winters. And then in man coverage, if you ask him to do a lot, there could be
it can run together on him.
Yeah, that could be a problem. But and then his time speed says that he's going to have a hard time in coverage carrying routes down the seams and down the field. But I actually don't see that at all. I see a guy who plays really fast and plays quite a bit faster than his instincts. I just thought, okay, you know what? I know there's some flaws in his game, but that was August. This is now December. This guy's been going to practice. He knows the defense. I think that if you were a bad team that was forced to put him out there, I think you'd look up and be like, wow, Jalen Graham had 12 tackles today. I mean, I think he's that kind of hyperactive, going to be involved in tons of plays. So
motor guy.
I want to see him. I'd like to see him, but it sounds like you're going to see Winters first for sure.
Why?
Well,
what the difference between them two? What's the knock?
Winters is a little bit more experienced playing in the box as a linebacker, and he's a little bit like if you watched him in the national semi against Michigan,
Very instinctive,
shooting gaps, and a lot of it was based on film study. So he's considered to be kind of a very cerebral inside backer who can run. The downside of Winters is that he had a 30-inch vertical, and so a lot of the scouts thought lower body explosion, he's just kind of okay. So like I would expect him to be quite a bit better next year after he spends an off season strengthening and his legs and getting more explosive in the lower half. But I think Winters is probably the guy who's more ready to play from scrimmage right now, and I think we're probably going to wind up seeing him this weekend.
Well, and I want to say this too, because you talked about the star role. This should tell you how good of an athlete he is. Two big names that played the star role. One coming out of college, Jalen Petrie, safety.
Baylor, right?
A little bit of had some corner tendencies, but he was a safety and kind of the hybrid linebacker thing. But he's been a very good safety so far in the NFL. Yeah, coming out of Baylor. And then guess who played the star role just a year ago for the Rams? Jalen Ramsey. So you're talking about it takes a very, very special athlete to play that star role. You don't just put anybody there. You put your best out there to play that position. The fact that Graham played that should tell you all you need to know about his athleticism. So whatever he timed or any of that doesn't mean anything, because that role is reserved for your best athletes on defense. And he was that. So, yeah. All right, let's get to some of these super chats. Soggy says, you guys are the best in the biz. Appreciate that, Soggy.
Thanks, Soggy.
Thank you, Soggy.
Matt says, can we have some fun with the Mooney Jimmy G comment?
Let's do it. I'm here for the shits.
You know what? I don't care. It's because it's Jimmy Garoppolo. He's not a 49er. But I want to say this. We knew what their thoughts were of Jimmy Garoppolo in that offense because Frank Clark said it right after the game. And so this is not a surprise. He's just saying what we kind of already knew. And I mean, I think we have our own quarterback topic to talk about. Enough of Jimmy G. Poor Jimmy. Brother Bob says, Nails and Coach, good to see you. Go Niners.
Unbelievable. Brother Bob, it's not good to see me. Come on, bro.
Brother Bob
just throw me in there. You couldn't just group me in there. You got
a couple of more characters, Bob.
You got to get in my kitchen in the first 15 minutes.
All he had to put. Hold on. I'm a chat baby. So
man, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all.
50 character chat, right? All he had to do was put PP, which is two more characters that he could have added you to the chat.
That ain't right.
I'm calling you out, Brother Bob.
I think Brother Bob, you're mean spirited. I'm gonna call the YouTube police on you.
Brother Bob says, who's in charge of the supers tonight? Please say Nails. Well, you can super chat on any of our channels, but I'm the one that's hosting tonight. Joey says, is Jason Verrett healthy? Yeah, you've talked to Jason this week. You're probably better to answer that than any of us, Larry. What do you
I actually did a one-on-one with him today at his locker. So unbelievable. He's feeling good. He's feeling good. I mean, you know what? It's like sometimes you're there and you don't realize the impact other people have on, or certain players have on the group. I'll admit it. I'm there and I've never realized that Jason Verrett has had this kind of impact on the team. Every scoreboard, every digital board in and around the stadium, including the ones that face Tasman and the street, all had welcome back JV today. So the organization loves him. The players love him. Bosa came out and said that he thinks he's an inspiration to the team.
Hell yes.
The young DBs can't say good things about him.
I'm gonna tell you why, though, Larry.
Why? Perseverance?
Yes. Let me tell you something, man. I understand, and Larry, I think we all understand this, really. This isn't like a gatekeeping situation. But football, we all love our team, but the fact of the matter is that we truly don't have a team until week 1, right? Until week 1, everybody is an independent contractor. They're going through camp. Everybody's fighting for their deal, pre-existing deals that are already in place. And the reason why football is such an amazing sport is because there's a blue collar element to the game where even though these guys get paid a crap ton of money, they're still in a position where you get to see somebody's day to day, right? You can't fake the work ethic. And Jason Verrett is a guy that was highly touted, remarkably talented, and has caught raw deal after raw deal with his health. And it takes a lot to put in months, years of hard work, and to have it all snatched from you in the blink of an eye of a play, and to turn right back around and say, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to put the days in. I'm going to go through rehab. I'm not going to cry about it. I'm not going to look for an excuse. I'm not going to blame anybody. I'm not going to change my demeanor to what's happening to me. I'm still going to be the same inspirational guy. I'm still going to coach up everybody around me. I'm still going to be a great teammate. That type of stuff makes guys think about players beyond the game, beyond football. You look at a guy and you say, God, if he can do this, how do I not get up and go work out at 5 a.m? How do I not practice hard every day when I can see JV, who, if he was healthy, he's literally one of the best players in the league. He'd have it all. And the fact that he's 10 toes down to the fact that he just wants the world to see his talent. At this stage of the game, we know that Jason Verrett is not a Hall of Famer, right? And it's not because he's bad. It's not because he's a bad player, right? That's the reality of the league. There's a lot of guys that we know that didn't make it and that'll never go because of circumstances, injuries, things that happened to them. Jason Verrett is one of those guys. That's the inside track to sports, to football, to pro sports, honestly. Guys understand that, look, man, you got to be lucky to get your situation together. You gotta survive the league. You got to have a good agent. You got to be on the right team, the right scheme, the right coordinator, somebody that actually likes you in the building. And then on top of all of that, you got to be healthy. And you got to get the reps. So I feel like Jason Verrett is a guy that he gets tons of OG respect, that real shit, not the stuff that you see on TV, but that behind closed doors respect, because guys who are propped up, they understand the work ethic of Jason Verrett, and they understand that he's doing most of Jason Verrett's work has been done behind the scenes. We'll never see most of what Jason Verrett has done to be here, to even be a practice squad player. Most of what he's done, we'll never see that work. We'll never see that. And that's why he's respected, man. It's a big deal. I'm glad he's here.
And he's also a guy that really shares his knowledge. Some guys don't like to share. He does. And he's a combination of speed, elite footwork, toughness. He's got a physical mindset. He can fit any scheme. He played, outside in college at TCU, but he can play in the slot, and he's courageous in the slot. He can play man to man. and then when they watch film, he notices things and points them out. I mean, he kind of views Demo as like, his student, his pupil.
Another one coming up.
Ambry, his pupil. And, these guys really respect this guy. He brings great intensity and toughness against the run, despite having a smaller body. He's torn both ACLs. He's ruptured both Achilles, and yet he's still out there. So
he's an inspiration. He truly is.
How many guys would just hang it up if they ruptured both Achilles and tore both these ACLs?
If they had enough money, they'd be done. That's why he gets the respect he does. If Jason Verrett, most guys, and you can name the names, go out, find them yourself. But most guys, once you play the game, once you get to the NFL, 95% of the guys that have gone to the NFL have been playing this game for at least 15 years, right? They've been playing since a child. And majority of the guys, once they get to the league, the reason why the difference between like the elite and the stars versus just the pro players is the guys who get the money, they get the clout, they get the fanfare and all of the recognition, and they still go to work like a blue collar guy. That's what makes you special. That's what makes you special versus the guys who will get a payday, get marginal money, and they feel as though that they've reached their peak, right? So you get a guy like Jason Verrett who has the fanfare, has the cachet of being a great corner, okay? But he's had injury after injury after injury. He doesn't owe anybody anything. You know what I mean? Like, that guy can literally have the legitimate excuse of like, yo, I've had multiple career-ending injuries at a position that affords me to use my legs. I cannot do this. And what I'm going to do is take my money and kind of just sit in the back. But he's still being vulnerable enough to share his story. Like, this is invaluable to young guys. Most older guys like this in these situations, they go and hide, man. And rightfully so. It's like, look, you're a shell of yourself. You're not what you used to be. There's vulnerability in what Jason Verrett is doing by still showing his story and understanding that he will never be what he truly should have been. Right?
And
that's why Jason
he's
Verrett's
also
a special
textbook.
guy.
He's a textbook player. I mean, like, everything that you want to see him do right, he does right. I mean, he recognizes routes. He's got good spatial awareness. He's technically very, very sound. If you watch him as a tackler, he's 5'9", 190, but he's a great form tackler. And so he's just a hard-nosed, aggressive football player who, you can count on. You can absolutely count on this guy. He's speedy. He's quick. He's a great athlete. And he does everything right. I mean, he ran 4.38 coming out. He went in the 20s, I believe, in the first round when he came out. And he's just got great ball skills. I mean, he'll play in the slot inside. He'll tackle. He'll play on the boundary. Plays man. He's now better in zone as well. So he's textbook in a lot of ways.
And he knows his role. He knows his role as a veteran, and he said it. He knows that he is here to teach the younger players. So I think the 49ers look at it and say, hey, you did a lot for us. You tried. Maybe you'll see the field, maybe you won't. But at the very least, we see value in you being around these youngsters and teaching them, and we'll pay you to do that. And maybe you can come get a ring with us. I think that we owe you that. And I love it. I love it for him because he did also try out for the Texans, and the Texans didn't give him that opportunity, right? And the Texans aren't as talented as the 49ers, but there is something to the value of what Coach is talking about, where going through all those injuries, fighting back, those players respect him. And even the players that are new to this team that haven't played with Verrett, they know about Jason Verrett. They respect Jason Verrett, and that's why Jason Verrett's here. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm sure he's as healthy as he can be coming off of another Achilles tear, but, I don't know. Him just being in the building is worth it. So, Oki says, this is where Shanny and Lynch earn their extensions? Absolutely. Yeah, we're about to find out, right? Like, this is where the bread is buttered. Brother Bob says, Nails and Coach, any matchups favor the Cardinals? No. Short answer. Short answer. No. Ron says, with the speed of Beal off the edge, should he be activated for Kyler and possibly Lamar and see if his speed could help contain them? All right. What are your guys' thoughts on this, Coach?
You're muted, Coach.
You're muted.
Again, I don't want to speak out of school because, narratives are cool, but I don't want to talk about a guy if I haven't literally seen him. I haven't seen that much of Robert Bill. I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him play an extended period of time. For what I see about him, I'm not gonna reiterate, his scouting attributes. We already know what he has. Quick first step, big guy, need to understand what he does in the run game, played minimal snaps at Georgia, but was a package guy, led the team in sacks. That's what we know about Robert Bill. I mean, outside of what you guys can pour onto what you've seen from him via camp, I will say that from a pass rushing perspective, this is what's kind of funny about our pass rushing situation is that even when we weren't getting sacks, we were still getting remarkable pressure. Kind of like top 3 in the league, remarkable pass rush pressure. So for me, I feel as though that when you get that type of pressure, you don't go all the way back to square one to kind of re-engineer how you want to get sacks. I think the Niners were remarkably smart in how they went about that is they added a little bit more depth, right? I watch Chase Young and I watch Randy Gregory play, and I understand that they have the cachet, right? I understand that they have the name, but for what they bring to the Niners, they're not necessarily marquee one-of-one guys as to what they were originally looked at when in the onset of their careers. As far as the Niners are concerned, with them and on our defensive line, I see them as depth pieces, very good depth pieces, but they are depth pieces. And understanding that our defensive line is more predicated on giving the best of who we have, which is Eric Armstead, Javon Hargraves, Nick Bosa, and whoever you want to stick on the other side, maybe Chase Young. But those 3 guys, in my opinion, are who need to stay fresh, right? Those are the guys who need to get a blow. And you can't give those guys a blow with a huge drop-off in talent. So for me, I do need to see a little bit more out of what a Chase Young will bring to our defensive line, what a Robert Beal will bring to our defensive line in a singular perspective. Personally, what do they do as a player? But as far as depth is concerned, you can pretty much stick anybody into this defensive line right now, and they'll give you the requisite depth that you need, because what we lead with is pretty much 3 to 4 of the best defensive linemen that the league has to offer right now. Like, guys, I'm getting to the point right now where I had us going 9-8, but I was judging this team off of a league, an NFL that just doesn't exist, right? You have multiple teams that are middling the pack of one game over 500, literally like 8 to 7 teams, okay? There's only 3 teams in the league right now with 10 plus wins, right? And we're going into week 13, right? So one thing that I did not account for is that the Niners are definitely proof of concept as good as they've portrayed themselves to be. But at the same time, this is a down year. This is a down year in the league. So right now, as far as the Niners are concerned, they just need more depth. I don't see anybody else. Honestly, I don't see anybody else that's going to be able to come and play the Niners and play 4 quarters for 60 minutes and be able to play a complete football game against us. I don't see any team right now.
And as far as Beal for this weekend, I mean, the Niners typically dress 8 D linemen. And if they're not going to dress Armstead or Hargrave, I think your 8 would be Bosa, Chase Young, Randy Gregory, Kevin Givens, Javon Kinlaw, Cleve Farrell, those 6, plus Kalia Davis, and then Robert Beal. So I think if Hargrave and Armstead both are in civies this weekend, and I think there's a chance for that, I think there's a very good likelihood that you're going to see Beal activated. And I'm kind of with the coach. I mean, I was at camp. Jesse, heck, you were there as well. But unless you were there the right day or two, he didn't play a lot in camp. Like he did flash some amazing speed, but he really was out most of camp. So no, it's not like anybody's gotten a real extensive look at Beal, even this summer. But I'd love to see it, right? Because, I mean, Lamar flies, Kyler flies. Robert Beal's a legit 4.48 coming off the edge. He's easily their fastest edge rusher. Why not? Why not? Especially if Hargrave and Armstead can't go, it's almost a perfect opportunity to take a look at what he has, see what he looks like.
Cryptic says, do you think Verrett sees the field? I personally think it would take a lot for him to see the field. And that's okay. I mean, he's there for depth.
Weekend,
he's there. What was that?
Ever or this weekend? Is this question?
I'm taking it. I didn't see for this weekend. I'm taking it as this season. I mean, it's going to take some injuries for him to see the field, in my opinion. Right? He's not going to just come in and start. So
let me ask you guys this: you think Verrett? All right. So as far as depth is concerned, right? Where does JV stand? Right? Is JV over Luter? Is JV? You know what I mean? It's JV.
I don't know how healthy he is. This is a tough question because we just don't know how healthy he really is. Saying he's healthy enough to pass a physical does not mean that he's Jason Verrett. We saw Jason Verrett come in. What was it, against the Steelers or whatever? I forget who they played. Maybe it was Miami. But he came in immediately a couple years ago and got toasted on deep routes. And it was like, okay, well, that didn't work. And then he came back the next year and was Jason Verrett again. So, there's a big possibility that he's a shell of himself right now and still needs more time to be Jason Verrett if he can ever get back there at his age. We'll see. But, if he's 80% of what Jason Verrett is, then I say he's first man off the bench. But we just don't know. We have no clue what he's really sitting at.
The nice thing is that they do have some nice players back there. And when I asked Wilkes today about some of the young guys that are going to have to play, he says that, he really wants to credit Lynch and the personnel department because he's like, I think we hit on all of our young guys. He's talking about Jair Brown, Darrell Luter, Winters, Graham, Beal. He's talking about Womack and Ambry and Lenore. And, and he's talking about all these young DBs that have been drafted. So I think, it's really
I love Darrell Luter, man.
I do too.
When I see him on the field, man, there's something about Darrell Luter, and I know this sounds a little hinky, because there's no actual facts behind this, but I see him move on the field, and I just think he is such an athlete. Like, even because I've been like itching to see him. So even on the special teams kickoff play where he runs down the ball carrier, did you guys see that play? Where like we leaked out on kickoff, he was on kickoff.
Against Eskridge in Seattle.
Kickoff return, yes,
it was amazing. It was amazing.
It's like I saw that, and I'm like, dude, we gotta find a way to keep this guy on the field. I am itching to see Jalen Graham and Darrell Luter Jr. so bad play reputable snaps. I really want to see what they have because the only reason why I really want to see what they have is because I think they're going to do great. I could be wrong, but for just small things about them, they seem to be enough for the moment.
Oh, yeah. Eskridge is a burner. I'm looking for his 40 time here, but he's a burner. And he ran him down like it was nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like Eskridge. I mean, I like Luter a lot. And I've talked to him a couple times. Heck, he is a great athlete, by the way. I'm not sure who said that, but that he is a great athlete. I walked into the locker room today. He took 2 like super deep threes on the hoop, swished them both. I mean, it's like, what? It's like a guy's a great athlete. And he's got 33.5-inch arms. He's played a lot of press man at South Alabama. So he's a mature kid. He's married. He has a young child. He's very focused. He's intense. He had that injury that resulted in the knee bruise, kept him on the PUP list a good portion of the year. But he's definitely in there thinking long term. The question is, how ready is he to see the field right now from scrimmage? And I don't know. I really don't know. But that play on special teams was absolutely one of the best plays I've seen.
Yeah,
he
man.
Ran that guy down.
That for me, that stood out, man. Like I saw that play, and in my mind, I just, you know how it is, Larry. Like
and Eskridge ran 4.38, by the way. I just looked it up.
Exactly.
4.38,
like,
and he ran that guy down.
Man.
Larry,
he ran that guy down. Otherwise, he was gone, man. He was gone to the house.
That's what's amazing about the game, though, Larry. Right? It's like we watched the game, right? And you yourself as a watcher, you're saying to yourself, I see the angles on the field, and I know what's going to happen. And when you see Eskridge run down the field, in your mind, there's that innate voice that's like, he's gone, right? Like, he's gone. And then out of nowhere, Darrell Luter kind of like reshifts the reality, and it's just like, no, that's real speed, right?
Well, and if you
really
saw where
it.
Luter started on the coverage unit, he had contain on the other side of the field. So he's all the way on one side of the field. Eskridge bolts up the left sideline, and Luter came from behind. Eskridge was already beyond him, and he chased him down. And Eskridge runs 4.38 and had 2 steps and the angle. So Luter's a great athlete. He's a great
Not
athlete.
only is he twitchy, not only does he have long speed, because that's what you call long speed, right?
Yeah.
And you can like get on him, right, from a distance. But he's a big body. I would love to see Darrell Luter go through like the Ambry Thomas or the Diamond Lenore arc, right? Like come in, struggle a little bit, but then take off. Like honestly speaking, the last piece to our defense has always been secondary. Would you guys agree? Like the last piece.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course.
No doubt. They're dominant up front. And Luter, by the way, ran officially for the stopwatch 4.46, but he has a 1.57 10-yard split. He's got a 40.5-inch vertical. So
athletic.
Ridiculous lower body explosiveness.
Right.
10-3 broad jump. I mean, this guy's a great athlete. I mean, he's a great athlete.
I just see these things where, I give him hell, man. I really do. Because I just see the best in him. But I give Kyle a lot of shit, man. Because I see how brilliant he is. But Kyle was 1,000% right. And I don't even think he knew what he was saying at the moment. And I think he was just kind of like explaining it away when we kind of like didn't go hard for Jalen Johnson at the time during the trade deadline, and he was asked explicitly, like, you guys kind of whiffed, on trying to get a corner. You guys have spoken up. John Lynch was very open about trying to see what we could do to kind of shore up that secondary. And as you can see, we signed Logan Ryan. We just signed Jason Verrett. Like, that was true. We're trying to get more resources on the secondary. But Kyle stood firmly in front of the press, and he said, look, we have the answers in the building. Like, I'm not necessarily concerned about going to go get Jalen Johnson, another guy who, although is very talented, would have been a little bit of an uptick financially for us down the line. I really like the fact that he held his water.
Samir says, hey, it's my favorite content creator collab. Cheers. Thank you, Samir. I appreciate you. And he says, also, shout out to all the comment creators. That's a Brother Bob and Matt, man. They've named themselves the comment creators. I love it. Matt says, Chargers quit on the season. Bye-bye, Staley.
He's been gone for a month.
It's about time.
Golly.
It's about time, bro. Staley is like that guy that you know who's a friend in college or high school, who's a scumbag, but he has the finest girlfriend of all time. And you're like, how did this guy pull this chick? How did he pull her? And we all know that he's a POS, but he has one of the most beautiful girlfriends on campus, and we're all confused. That's who Staley is. That's
Guys,
who Brandon Staley is.
I'm hearing, and I don't know, we can't show it now because I think we'll probably get demonetized, but after this stream's over, I'm seeing headlines that Brandon Staley gave the saddest halftime interview in the history of halftime interviews. Somebody said you got to see it. It's just ridiculously.
I'm about to watch it now.
Sad.
Hold on.
Oh,
Ridiculous, man.
Brother Bob says Brandon Staley's auditioning for PP spot on here. We're not gonna take him. He ain't fooling us. Matthew says, guys, I have nothing constructive to add except that I just finished finals 2 hours ago. Well, hopefully you did very well, Matthew. Says having a few adult beverages and Niners are contenders. It's about to be Christmas.
There you
and
go.
Y'all put out the best content. Cheers,
Matt's
Matthew.
coming up on a Christmas break.
Thank
You
you.
earned it, buddy.
Do
you
you remember?
Matt.
Do you remember how good those days felt? Because, like,
Dude,
you're
after
a
finals.
student. You're a student, and it's like being a student. It's kind of like almost like having a full-time job, right? Because yeah, there's school hours, but then you got homework and you got tests and you got all the. So you're basically almost like you're working a job. But
Right.
then when you gets to break, then it's like you know, summer break, awesome, winter break, awesome. You don't have a care in the world. So I just remember how great it felt when you'd finish finals and you'd be like, dude, I don't have to do nothing until like January, whatever.
It's a huge weight off you.
That's a great feeling.
Yeah. Congrats, Matt. I know what it feels like to cram
Matt.
on
Yeah,
those
seriously.
finals, bro.
Enjoy the night for sure.
Enjoy your holiday, your holiday, bro. Enjoy your holiday vacation. Enjoy it.
I would love to put this next super chat up because it's a great question and it's actually going to parlay directly into our next topic, but I can't because this profile picture is a bit risque. We'll say I would change it, but we're not risking our channels to put this up, brother. But I will read it. Ben Affleck's double chin says, "If Brock stealing,
I think it is.
Yes, it is. If Brock stealing is Romo, do you take it or Trent Green?" Well, let's talk about it because he was compared to.
Again, Jess.
Is Brock? If Brock's ceiling is Romo, would you take it? And I think that's coming off the heels of Eric Crocker having a show after all of the Cam Newton stuff that happened this weekend. And on that show, he had a former defensive back on that show. And he talked about, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on his name. I just brought him up on my show like yesterday. But either way,
what are you thinking of?
Will Blackman. Will Blackman was on Crocker's show. And he said that Purdy reminds him of Romo. So I imagine that's where the question's coming from. But really, all of this is deriving from Cam Newton's comments. And I know that everybody under the sun has talked about it, but we haven't talked about it together. And I haven't heard your guys' perspectives on this whole situation. So let's start with the question at hand, which I cannot show on the screen. Let's start with that, which is, if Brock Purdy is Tony Romo, are you happy with that? Larry, I'll start with you on that one.
No, he's way better than Tony Romo. If you go look at Tony Romo's football card,
looking at it now,
he had 1 year where he had nearly or maybe 2 years. He had close to a 70% completion percentage over the full year, and he had double-digit picks once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, including 2 years where he threw 19 picks. So I don't
2012.
I don't think I think Brock's better than Romo. I think Brock's quite a bit better than Romo. And who was the other guy?
He said Trent Green.
Trent Green's interesting too. He got hit by Robert Geathers, and it was almost like he got hit by a bus. Trent Green had talent. He lost his starting job on the Greatest Show on Turf to Kurt Warner, and the rest is history.
Right.
He was a talented guy, but I don't know. I think Brock is better than both those guys, to be honest. But if he was those guys, would I be happy? I mean, I don't know. I mean, Tony Romo has a 13-3 season, an 11-5 season, a 12-3 season. The rest of those are 8-7, 8-8, 8-8, 6-4, 1-5. I don't know. I'm thinking that Brock is probably better than Tony Romo. And I haven't even really thought about Trent Green.
Coach.
Fuck. Tony Romo wasn't half bad, man. Remarkable release.
Did he win any
games? He's got, Larry, you're gonna get me back into this Tannehill bullshit. But look,
no, I'm asking. I really don't know.
Got me back. Relax, Larry. He's got me at. He's at 75% for his last career. That was nothing. He's got 68, 69 in his last 2 years. 69 in 2010. Small school guy. What kills me about Tony Romo? First of all, I don't like the comp. The comp is not accurate, in my opinion. Tony Romo was more of a gunslinger than Brock, in my opinion. Brock is more efficient. He's more calculated. He's got a little bit of gunslinger in him, but nothing to the level of Tony Romo. He's not Tony Romo. He's definitely not Trent Green.
He has the same number of playoff wins right now as Tony Romo.
Yeah, well, we know that that's the knock on Tony, though. That's the reason why Dak Prescott even exists. It's because Tony Romo couldn't get it done in the big games, in the moments, right? As far as seasons are concerned, Tony Romo was more than enough. He was more than enough. The fact that Tony Romo's MO was that he couldn't get it done in the big game. You have for what that's worth, you have to at least admit the fact that he made it to the big game. So you know what I mean? So
he made 4 Pro Bowls. He did make 4 Pro Bowls, and Green made 2. So we are talking about
He's not Trent Green. Brock Purdy is not Trent Green. Full stop. He's not Tony Romo either. I think Tony Romo had a little bit of a stronger arm. Dare I say a quicker release? Tony Romo had a remarkably quick release. I would say off bat, the comparisons are wrong. The success, I don't see Brock throwing 19 picks. Not in today's league. That's excessive for today's league. Because the way I see it is that the way the league is built now, it's 100% geared towards the offense. You can't touch them, you can't grab them, you can't hold them. You got to let them run everywhere. I mean, there was a point in the league where Larry, tell me if I'm wrong. Honestly, do you remember when open in the league was considered a half a step? A half a step, like a step, you were open in the league from a quarterback perspective. If you had a step on a receiver in the NFL, you were officially considered an open receiver. Man, 9 times out of 10, these boys has got 5-yard separation. They're wide the fuck open, man. Like it's just a different criteria from what the defense can do to today's quarterback. I don't even think you can compare like quarterbacks from 10 years ago. You can't compare them to what these guys do now. You can't. You can't compare what Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa, and Brock Purdy have to deal with on a day-to-day defense. They don't see that type of physicality. They damn sure don't see that type of athleticism in the secondary. You got DBs that can't even cut offensive linemen. What's the number one thing that the offense does in the NFL today? They run to the outside. They run wide zone. The number one thing when I played was you couldn't run a wide zone. And if you ran up on a corner or a safety or somebody smaller, they could cut you, right? They could cut you, literally. We could cut you down because you're not going to create space on the edge to get the ball moving forward. They can't even cut offensive linemen now. Corners, whole corners can't cut offensive linemen now. So for me, I feel like even judging these quarterbacks versus what these guys are asked to do today is a little, it's apples and oranges. It really is. It's not the same game. It's not.
I mean, Trent Green was sub 500, so you can take him and put him away. He was 56 and 57.
Trent Green, full stop, is not.
He never won a playoff game in his entire career. So
yeah, it's not Brock Purdy.
He's better than Trent Green.
Yeah.
Tony Romo's interesting. Because he has pretty good stats. He's had some decent years. I don't know. I think Brock's better than both those guys, to be completely honest.
All right.
And Brock is better than Tony Romo, man. Like Tony Romo was a fringe guy in the league at the time, but he was every bit of a pro's pro, and he could make all the throws. You see what I'm saying? Tony Romo could make all. That's what I'm trying to say. This is almost kind of like going in with a scalpel instead of an axe, because you don't want to discredit what the guys are doing in today's league, right? Because it plays. They're professional. They deserve all of the adoration and the success that they get from the predecessors before them. But you can't tell me that Tony Romo wouldn't play in today's league and fucking shred. He shred. He was fringe good back when he played. I'm willing to admit that. Tony
What's
Romo
the highest you would, if you said, just without even thinking about it, if I just said, where's the highest you think Tony Romo ever really ranked among quarterbacks in any of the years that he played?
Mm-hmm.
He played from 2004 through 2016.
Right.
From 2004 through 2016, we all know he was never the best. Okay,
he was never the best.
And he got MVP votes in 2014, though.
Yes, he did, but he was never. I want to be fair to Larry, though. He was never the best.
I don't.
Hold on. Okay. Hold on. True? I got to enter the conversation. I've listened to this shit long enough. All right, here we go. Here's the deal. I hate the fact that we can sit here and say that a quarterback can come in and play one good season and be better than a guy who's put together a freaking career of pretty good play.
That's the world we live in, Jess. That's Tony the world we live in.
Listen, I know, but hold on. Tony Romo played in a league. He entered the league in 2004. It really started to become a passing league. 2012 is when you started to see the turn of a lot of these rule changes, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at Tony Romo's final 4 years of play, because the final 4 years compared to those first years, there's a major difference. And the reason is because the rules got more lenient.
He almost threw for 5,000 yards in 2012.
2011, 16 games played, 4,184 passing yards, 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. 2012, 16 games played, 4,903 passing yards, 28 touchdowns, 19 interceptions. Not great on the interceptions. 2013.
There's a lot of picks involved.
Hold on. Just let me finish. I've listened to you guys.
Let him cook.
2013, 15 games, 3,800 yards, 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. 2014, his last full final year, 15 games played, 70% completion, 3,700 yards, 34 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, and got MVP votes that year. Tony Romo was not a bad quarterback. Yes, he had his woes and stuff in the playoffs. I feel like we're getting to a point, and this is not a Brock Purdy thing. You give me any quarterback right now and give me their first year. People were doing it with Mahomes after his first 2 seasons, and he won his first Super Bowl. And I was like, can we pump the brakes on him being a top 5 quarterback? If he retires tomorrow, you can't put him there. Yes, nope. He was phenomenal, but you can't do that. We're overriding years of play in this league and saying, hey, this quarterback can put together 2 good years, 3 good years, whatever, and they automatically get to skyrocket above everybody. That's not the
Above
way that
everybody.
this works, man. I think it's full stop disrespectful to players that have put in 8, 10, 12 years into this league. I just think it is.
Tony Romo's second year of his career, he threw for 4,211 yards, 36 TDs, and 19 picks. You know what I'm saying? Like, his second year, he threw for 4,200 yards in a league where you could play real football. You could be physical. All right? There wasn't offensive holding 5 yards down the field. Like, it's a whole different ball game, bruh. And today's football it's weak.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Well, first of all, I didn't make this comparison. You asked me this question, so
I did ask the question.
We're not bringing
you said he's already better than Tony Romo. One season, Larry.
Right, totally. So if you give me a chance, I would
go ahead.
That.
Go ahead.
You got the floor, Larry.
Because what I'm talking about is generally, and this is not a rule, but it's as a generalization. Generally, you're better as you go.
Mm-hmm.
Like Steve Young was better in his 30s than he was in his 20s. Joe Montana was better at the end than he was at the beginning. Vinny Testaverde was better at the end than he was at the beginning. Tony Romo, you just mentioned Tony Romo. He was an MVP, third overall in the AP MVP voting in 2014. He was 34 at that point. He'd already played a decade.
He was already polished by then.
Yeah, we're seeing Brock Purdy as, you got to compare guys at the same age. It's like all baseball scouts. When you say, well, this is what the guy's stats are, they're like, okay, well, what level is he at and what's his age? And if you're older for your level, they mark you down. And if you're, if you're doing it at an earlier age, that's more impressive. So for Brock Purdy to be doing what he's doing at 23 is quite a bit more impressive than for Tony Romo to figure it out by 34. That's all I'm saying.
No, let me say this, Jesse, before you hop in. I know it's your shit. But look, that's what makes me disagree with Cam Newton, right? Let's have a real conversation. Like, we ain't worried about the fans. Let's have a real conversation.
I'm not worried about what anybody says. I'm going to say what I want to say.
I was with Cam Newton. I was with Cam. I heard everything Cam had to say, and I was with him until he started comparing Brock to players that have played longer than Brock. My saving grace with Brock Purdy is that he's showing what he's doing in the NFL today this early in his career. So I guess the question really with Brock is, what's his ceiling, right? Because when you look at a guy who's doing what Brock does, and you want to pick him apart, you want to talk about his arm, you want to talk about the fact that he has tons of receivers, he's on an all-world team, the league is down, everything is cheeks, cool. You can bring up all of that shit. But the fact of the matter is that you can't fake the fact that he's only been in the league for a year and a half. He really hasn't even been in the league for 2 years. So if you're looking at what he's doing now, that's the misnomer towards success, where you could say Tony Romo, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, all of these other players that have requisite success, but Brock is doing it 1.5 years into the league. So I've scouted what Brock is going to do in projection, right? Like, it's not enough to say what you see. That's fine. The league is transient. So we have to look at what Brock is going to do. Well, if you think that Brock is what he is now, then you have to scout him in the projection. So you have to say, well, what would be elite about Brock? Well, he has great processing. Brock has the potential to be one of the best processors in the league. Brock throws low picks. He takes care of the football, seemingly. Brock has the potential in his polished years to be one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league that does not turn the ball over. Brock is very aggressive. He knows how to get the ball downfield, and he's fairly accurate. So my thing to you, Larry, is where do you see Brock in the future? How do you project him from a scouting perspective? Because you can talk about what you see all day, but the fact of the matter is that everybody who is talking about what they see about Brock is in a posthumous category. They're talking about what they saw after the fact. What can you tell me before we see it?
Well, I mean, back to Cam for 1 second. All I would say is Purdy in his first 2 years has completed 69% of his passes, 38 touchdowns, 11 picks. Cam in his first 2 years completed roughly 58% with 40 touchdowns and 29 interceptions. So lower completion percentage, were a few more touchdowns, but also he played more games. And 29. I mean, not, seriously. I mean, we're talking about 18 more interceptions. So, I mean, as far as Cam,
that's a comparison, Larry.
I'm not just against Cam. I mean, I'm comparing
that's
Cam
to
Brock.
Larry. That's the ESPN world
Cam
of
should
thing.
not be.
Cam said something about Cam. Cam said something about Brock, essentially, right? The way we see it.
Right.
Cam said something about Brock, and now we're going to pick apart Cam versus Brock. But
I
not
like
the
Cam.
argument. That's not the debate. That's not the debate. The debate is, what is Brock? What do you project Brock to be in the future? You can tell me what you see about him. I can do that. We can look at games and say, Brock carried the team last week. Brock did a good job. Brock is efficient. Brock has tons of processing. What can you project? What can you tell me that we don't see about Brock that is going to be something that is going to be an attribute about Brock moving forward?
I just think Brock's going to win more games. He's going to throw more touchdowns. He's going to throw fewer picks. I mean, Brock is 15-3 in the first 2 years. Cam was 13-29 in the first 2 years. Does that sound right?
So team-wise, franchise-wise, and I'm sorry, Jesse, franchise-wise, what do you see for this team? When we pay Brock $30+ million a year,
right,
along with paying Nick Bosa, something's got to shake. So, when Brock gets, because this is the thing, we're talking about potential MVP. We're talking about one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league. We're talking about one of the most conscientious and aggressive quarterbacks in the league. If we're being fair to Brock, how much is that to you? Where is the price tag? And where do we fall off because of that? And can Brock supplant that deficiency once he gets paid? Because the mark of a true franchise quarterback, this is cute. We can talk about the numbers, right? We can compare, and it's easy to pettifog to cherry pick. Brock's only been in the league 2 years. So it's easy to look at guys who have a body of work and to pick the best times of, well, Brock is stronger right here. This guy is in stronger right here. Like, that's Twitterverse, right? But at the same time, when are we going to see what Brock can supplant? Where do you see this team going when Brock is the man? Because once he gets paid, like the way we're talking about him, okay, MVP quarterback, not even the quarterbacks that win the MVP, quarterbacks that are potentially in the MVP ranking, that's team-altering money. He's going to get paid a bag. So what do you have to do? Where is Brock going to be carrying this team? Do you feel confident that he can carry this team once we do get rid of the weapon? Because that's what has to happen.
I mean, carry the team. I don't know if he can carry the team. I don't know who's going to be on the team. I don't think anybody can carry the team. Mahomes just lost at home to Buffalo. He couldn't carry Kansas City with maybe the best head coach, and he's right in his prime. He can't even beat Buffalo. It's a team sport. You got to have an offensive line. Otherwise, Tampa's going to jailbreak on you in the Super Bowl, and you're going to be rendered not that good. You got to have receivers. You got to have a run game. You got to have a defense. But all I'll say is, as far as Cam Newton, you could argue, is a huge disappointment. He was a very high draft choice. Look at his career. He's got 112-4 season. He's got the great MVP season of 15-1, where he won the MVP. They went 15-1. He was awesome. They went to the Super Bowl. Then he's got an 11-5 season. So he played from 22 to 32. So he really could still be playing right now. He just couldn't beat out Mac Jones. I mean, that's really what's happened here. He could not beat out Mac Jones at the end of his career, in his 30s, in his early 30s. He's already done when Steve Young was just getting started. But look at his career records: 6-10, 7-9, 5-8-1, 6-8, 6-8, 0-2, 7-8, 0-5. He only has 3 winning seasons in his entire career. And to
what
me,
does discrediting Cam Newton have to do with what he said, though?
Because he's calling Brock Purdy a game manager. I'd be willing to venture a guess that Brock's going to have a much better career and is already better in several areas. Cam Newton's biggest claim to fame, I think, when I think of Cam Newton, and maybe I'm wrong on this, maybe it's because I went to this game, I think of the business decision that he made against Von Miller in the Broncos on that fumble in the Super Bowl. That the ball was at his feet and he just opted not to dive on it. So I don't know. I don't think of Cam as one of the great.
Hold on. Let me ask you a question. So that's
one of his great competitor.
That's one of his worst moments as a competitor.
In his biggest game.
Let me ask you a question. What does that have to do with him saying that Brock Purdy is a game manager versus a game changer?
It's insulting, and it's like he's trying to it's not just Brock. Forget Brock. He's insulted Dak, he's insulted Goff, he insulted Tua. They're game managers. And then come on, I mean, how much 49er football has he won? They're not winning games because of Brock. Really? Because
let me ask you something.
Every non-Jimmy Garoppolo quarterback under Shanahan when Brock took over was 9-29. So it's not like this is like a team that wins games no matter who's at quarterback. They didn't until Brock showed up. So all I'd say to him is you know what? I would stop talking because I think he's embarrassing himself with those comments. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they're the best comments coming from Cam, right? Cam likes to wear a fedora with a feather in his cap. He's eclectic. He's loud. He's not necessarily.
But that's okay. That's just style, right?
Let me finish. He's eclectic. He's loud. He's not necessarily easy on the eyes for what the average NFL fan likes to listen to. But he was an NFL MVP. He did go to a Super Bowl. Okay, and for what it's worth, we can sit here and talk about Cam Newton losing his job to Mac Jones, but let's be clear. A first-round pick being picked at quarterback for a team is in no competition at all. All right? If you can draft the first-round pick and he gets beat out by the backup quarterback that you bring in, you're essentially fired as a head coach because it's not about the competition anymore. It's about your evaluation skills as a subject matter expert. So we got to understand that Cam was brought into New England to be a backup. He wasn't brought into New England to be a legit competitor for the starting job. You don't draft a guy that high and then have a real quarterback competition where you think that he's actually going to be the backup if Cam shows to be better. That's just not the way it works.
But he got 15 starts and he went 7-8.
Say that again?
He got 15 starts with the Pats and he went 7-8.
Yeah, and he went 7-8. But hold on, wait a minute. I understand that that's a good headline comment for you, but there's a lot of context involved with that. With Cam getting sick, Cam had COVID at the time. There wasn't necessarily all of those numbers where he got 15 starts and he went 7-8. There's a lot of things that happened in between that. I feel this is my only thing. My gripe is that Cam has a voice. That's all. I'm not saying he's right. I'm not saying he's wrong. All I'm saying is that Cam has a voice. Would you agree that Cam has a right to his opinion? He has a voice.
Nobody would ever say he doesn't have a right to his opinion, but I have a right to say his opinion.
Is that when Cam made the argument, right, for Jared Goff, Tua Tagovailoa, and Dak Prescott, I just feel as though that you didn't dive into theirs numbers. You went right into Cam. You went right into Cam's numbers. So all I'm saying is
his whole commentary.
I just feel as though that you going into Cam's numbers
right
is basically trying to discredit the person who raised the debate in the first place.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. But if you really wanted to listen to what he said, you would have gone into the numbers of Tua Tagovailoa, Cam, Dak Prescott, and Jared Goff. That's all I'm saying. Is that I feel as though that because Cam raised the issue, now Cam is under attack. And the fact of the matter is that the three players that Cam named, you can name Brock Purdy, Tua Tagovailoa, 4, Jared Goff, and Dak Prescott have never been the MVP of the NFL. So Cam is speaking from a rarefied platform that none of the quarterbacks that he mentioned have even reached. That's all. That's my only point.
I mean, okay. But you know what? He's ripping Jared Goff, and Jared Goff has gone to a Super Bowl. He's ripping Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's had a pretty good career and may win the MVP this year. And so what? I mean, you're talking about ripping a guy who may win the MVP, another guy who's one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL and maybe second in MVP voting, and a guy who has gone to a Super Bowl and lost it, which last I checked is exactly what Cam did, and Tua, and a lot of people think very highly of Tua.
Tua went to a Super Bowl and lost?
Goff. So all I'm saying is Cam, Richard, I mean, you don't have to listen to me. Heck, I'm just Larry Krueger sitting here on a YouTube show. Go listen to Richard Sherman.
Richard Sherman is just same as Larry Krueger sitting on a radio show.
No,
he has an opinion.
He's not.
Just
he's a future but I mean, he's a future Hall of Famer. I mean, if you want to say that Cam's got a voice because he's an MVP, then go listen to a guy like Richard Sherman, and he pushed back hard.
Hey, this is the way I see this, and I see you shaking your head, Jesse. My man, the reason why these guys flex these credentials in this space is because they understand that this space is ruled by who pays attention the most. There ain't no HR department for this shit. Ain't no straight up verified regulations for talking to the fans as being a content creator. You hunt what you eat. You are who you are. So the reason why these guys prop up their resume and their credentials is because they want to take control of the argument. But they're really trying to get away from the fact that in this space, anybody can have an opinion. Literally anybody. There's 3 guys right here that have never played in the NFL with people watching them having an opinion. So when I see NFL players dip into the debate of the everyman, of the blue collar guy, I'm not moved by that gatekeeper shit. Just because you played in the league, all of a sudden you want us to just care about your opinion and take your opinion as respect. Larry, as far as I'm concerned, I take your opinion over a situation dealing in narrative over Richard Sherman's.
Yeah, but you just
because
said
he played the game doesn't mean that you understand what's going on.
Yeah, but you just said that we should listen to Cam because he won the MVP. And all I'm saying is we should listen to Sherman. He's played in the league. I'm just saying, if you want to go with guys who have credentials and you want to say, well, Cam's got a voice because he won the MVP, then all I'm saying is you got to listen to other guys who
I didn't say Cam has a voice. I'm just saying that you can't discredit him like he's been there. That's all. I'm just discreditation. That's all I'm talking about.
I don't like guys who attack the current guys like they were better when they weren't better. I don't like Orlovsky having all the answers. I didn't like Trent Dilfer having all the answers. I don't like these guys that couldn't do it when they played, but now are geniuses. Cam is a different case because Cam won the MVP. But I just disagree with Cam's whole notion. I mean, do you really? I mean, seriously, we watch every Niner game. Do you really believe that Brock Purdy is just
why I fuck with Larry? I fuck with Larry because I agree with you.
But I agree with you 100%. Do any of us
Orlovsky coming out talking about how great Brock Purdy is, JT O'Sullivan and Chase Daniels, all of these like career bums that are coming out talking about Brock Purdy doesn't help Brock Purdy to me. Right? But because those of us who've been watching football long enough know that you weren't the guy, Dan Orlovsky. You weren't the guy, Chase
that's
Daniels.
Okay. I mean, Coach, like, give you an example. JT O'Sullivan breaks down Purdy, but he doesn't do it like from an ESPN like hot takes point of view. He does it from a real strict, okay, this is what I'm seeing on film. I have more respect for that because he's not trying to like, hey, Brock's good or Brock's bad. He's like, on this play he's good and on that play he's not good. And I'm kind of wondering about this route combination. I didn't like that from Shanahan, and I do like that. So he's more nuanced in his whole dialogue. And I don't know about Chase Daniel because I've heard good things about Chase Daniel's film breakdown. I just don't like the guys who they used to play and now it's like they're no longer relevant and they're just going to start saying wild stuff because now it's literally become
it's open season.
You can build a channel. You can build a following by strong commentary against the guys who are doing it right now. And that's all I'm saying is I think Cam Newton was a great player for a while, but I just don't like that comment because I don't agree with it at all that Brock Purdy's just along for the ride. I mean, he's the quarterback and Shanahan would debunk that over and over and over again in a much more intelligent way than I can. But I just think that that's an incorrect statement. That's all. That's why.
Let me ask you this, Larry. Do you think the term game manager is a disparaging comment? Is a disparaging sentiment? Do you think calling a quarterback is disparaging? Calling a quarterback a game manager, do you think that's disparaging?
Definitely. I mean, I think it's intentionally because because it's intentionally used to say that the guy's not. It's like it's a way of saying he's lesser, and it's a way that people are using to say quarterbacks are lesser. Now, like,
isn't the job of the quarterback to manage the game?
Yeah, I mean, if you just use the English language, hey, I've heard people who are not football fans go, hey, they call him a game manager. And then like maybe my wife would say, well, what's wrong with that? Doesn't he manage the game? And it's like, yeah, but we all know that that's kind of code for he ain't good enough and he's not really a top tier guy. And I just don't, I really don't,
I
don't know what Brock Purdy is, but I know
interesting
we can't label it.
I think it's interesting that we play we blur the lines on when we want to notice coded language and when we don't. I think it's amazing that we can pinpoint when we want to be outraged with statements that we all understand are coded and when we want to ignore statements that are coded. So in my opinion, a game manager is somebody that is doing their job, right? What do you think a game manager is, Larry?
I think it's used by people trying to discredit quarterbacks.
I didn't ask what you think what is used by. What do you personally think a game manager is?
First of all, I don't care about the term, so I don't use the term. It means nothing to me.
All right, way to bail out of the discussion.
It means nothing.
Way to bail out of the discussion.
No, I mean, if you're asking me my honest opinion, I'm not playing along. I'm like giving my honest opinion.
What a 3-point stance means, and you saying I don't ascribe to 3-point stance. Like,
no, I don't use that.
You've heard the name game manager.
Yeah, I don't use it.
So you've never used
I don't
game
think
manager.
it's not a football term. It's a term used by media people. It's not a football term.
Wait a minute. So a game manager is not a football term. It's a media term.
Nobody that I ever worked with in pro football ever used game manager.
Never.
That's
interesting.
Not in Canada, not in the NFL, not anywhere. Never have I heard football people use game manager. It's a media term. It's something that fans like to throw around, but I've never heard NFL scouts, personnel people, or coaches say, this guy's a game manager. It's too coach, these guys speak in particulars. That's a very general comment. I mean, it's so you can interpret it any way you want. As I said, my wife thinks it sounds great. He's managing the game, but I think we all kind of know that it's coded for he ain't good enough. He's a game manager. What I would say, if you're asking me to describe what I think of when I hear game manager, I think of Alex Smith. That's who I think of. And that probably is not fair, but that's who I think of. I think of a guy who doesn't drive the ball down the field, who is captain check down, who takes the check down if it's there over driving the ball down the field. And that's not Brock Purdy. I mean, I just heard Shanahan in an interview this afternoon on the radio where he said, man, this guy's the opposite of the check down guy. This guy, if anything, if Brock's got a weakness, it's that he's too aggressive and doesn't take the check down enough. And he's thinking home run ball on every series, and he'd like him to check it down more. But when I think
what would you call
Alex,
a check down guy?
Alex Smith, who checked down 13 times in the NFC Championship game against the New York Giants.
Would you consider a check down guy to be a game manager?
When I think of game manager, I think of check down. I think of just take what the defense gives you. Don't take chances. Don't take risks. Kind of what Cam just defined, which is he's not going to win the game for you. He's just not going to lose it. And that's not Brock. I know that's what he thinks Brock is, but he's not watching enough. Brock's not the guy who just takes all, very, very conservative. He takes huge chances and is going down the field probably almost to a fault.
All right, listen, I'm going to get the show back on track here.
Go ahead, Jess.
That was great. Here's all I wanted to say, Larry, going back to the Tony Romo thing, and right. I'll wrap it up. I don't have a problem with saying, hey, I'm projecting Brock Purdy to be X based off of what he's shown. He's shown at this stage compared to early in Tony Romo's career or early in this Cam Newton's career or whoever you want to say. I think he's going to be better. Or if he was Tony Romo, the original question was, would you be disappointed if he was Tony Romo?
I would be.
If he is, okay, and that's fine. But the words that you said were he's better than Tony Romo, meaning
I think he's
already better than Tony Romo. And
right.
that's and maybe that's me mincing words, but I take that at face value is, oh, you're saying he's already better than a guy who played in the league for 10 years. Oh, right. He's already better than Cam Newton, who did win an MVP, did go 15-1, did have 45 total touchdowns and 4,500 total yards, throwing to Devin Funchess. Yeah, he might be better. He's projecting to be better, but to say that he's already better than those guys, that's the only thing that I'm trying to argue or bring up. When it comes to the Cam thing, listen, I don't think any of us agree with what Cam actually said, but a lot of people have discredited Cam and acted as if he did nothing in the league all of a sudden because he said something that they don't like. But when JT O'Sullivan, and again, I've had JT on here, this is not a shot at JT, but I'm going to call it what it is. JT O'Sullivan, we know what he was in this league. When he wants to get up and praise Brock because it aligns with our opinions, we're good with that. You don't think, listen, go to JT O'Sullivan's channel. You said that he doesn't have a dog in this fight or a horse in this race. JT
I don't know him that well, but he doesn't appear
I know.
based on what I've
seen. Right. We're not
trying
to link you to JT.
And I'm not. But JT, go look at his channel. He did a film review every week on Brock, except for 3 weeks. What 3 weeks do you think he neglected to do a film review on Brock on his channel?
Yeah.
And then he picked up again. Every week since then, he's done one. He certainly has a dog in this fight, right? He's making content just like anybody else. He does a phenomenal job. I love what JT O'Sullivan does. I would love for him to come back onto the channel, but I see that stuff. He's doing it for clicks just like anybody else is. So he's not
clout,
above
it's
anybody
clout,
else.
Bro.
So anyways, that's all I'm saying.
You don't think he would get clicks if he ripped the hell out of Brock? I think he would.
I'm not saying that, but he
for
some reason he decided not for 3 weeks to post about Brock Purdy. Randomly 3 weeks weren't on there.
Probably doesn't want to be on the record as ripping Brock Purdy. But as far as comparing a quarterback,
then he's not honest about his analysis. Then that's
maybe he's not. I don't know.
As Coach would say, that's a dishonest broker.
Okay,
dishonest broker, baby.
Take it up with him. All I would say is there are people like that would say, like right now, if you said, "Is Patrick Mahomes better than?" and you fill in a quarterback from yesteryear, there are people that will say, "Yeah, oh yeah, he's better." Like right now, if we were having a football discussion around a table, or and a bunch of NFL people were here, and someone said, "Man, Patrick Mahomes is better than Terry Bradshaw," There would be
Patrick
people that would.
Mahomes at this point in
There
his
would be people
career
that would
has
say
2 MVP
yes.
awards and 3 Super Bowl rings or whatever. What does he
But
have?
I mean,
3
he's
rings
not
now?
done. He's not done. And Bradshaw's got
He's not.
4 rings, and
He's
Bradshaw's
not.
in the Hall of Fame. So I'm just saying, you can say that you think a quarterback's better than a guy that's finished. There's all kinds of people that would say that good quarterbacks today are better than, quarterbacks whose careers are over from 20 years ago. So I mean, I'm just, and I don't look at it as the whole thing. I'm not looking at Cam. I'm looking at Cam the same way I'm looking at Brock. So the same thing. If Brock's played 2, I'm looking at Cam's first 2, and I'm looking at the same point. If you're doing it fair, I mean, I think that's the totally fair way to do it.
That is totally fair to do. I have no issue with that. None.
And this is not my discussion. This was a question that was asked.
I know, I understand that. I just want to make sure, like, to me, again, I know it's barbershop talk. I know that we, hey, this player sucked or this player was whatever and all of that. But I personally get frustrated when we talk about players who were in the league for a long time that did produce as if they're nothing because now all of a sudden they're not in the league and
in the league whack as shit now.
Right.
Well, I mean, first of all, there are people talk about the yesteryear players. They talk about the yesteryear players also with great reverence. I mean, there's those that would argue the opposite, Jesse, that would say that guys actually, the good quarterbacks become great over time because, it's like, because now it's like I give you an example, John Elway. I think John Elway is talked about greater in post-career than he was in career.
Oh, I agree with that. Yes.
That's true.
And I'm sitting there going, like, and my kids, like,
he didn't get any of that love when he played.
Well, like my 14-year-old's like, Dad, John Elway is thought of as like one of the top guys ever. And he had, look at all these interceptions and look at all these down years and look at all these Super Bowl losses.
He didn't even complete 57%.
Yeah. And look at his stats, look at his numbers. So it's like, time has a way of recording. You're right. The best guys get better over time and everybody else gets forgotten.
Yeah. And that's Larry, that's really all we're trying to like really highlight is that I just noticed a weird phenomena where Cam brought up Brock. And for what it's worth, you could say he was hating. You could say that he doesn't watch the Niners clearly. One thing I will say about Cam is that it's clear at how generalized he was speaking. He does not watch the 49ers. He doesn't. If he had seen what Brock has done thus far, he would have thought twice about what he said. That's clear. Okay. Because the last thing you want to call Brock after, like, if you take the name off the jersey and you don't know who he is, you be saying Brock is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Full stop. If you didn't know anything about the NFL, if you just watched the game, you say this kid's fucking good, man. He's sufficient. He gets the ball out on time. He's ahead of the game. His timing is on point. He knows how to protect the ball. Like, that's what you get out of Brock, flat out, right? But I just feel as though that Cam didn't know. He was kind of talking out of school, to be honest. I feel like he was talking out of school because how he entered with, man, they ain't winning because of him. The fact that he said that right after the Seattle Seahawks game, for me, that killed him. Because that was a game where if you ever in the season wanted to see where does Brock Purdy really stand with the Niners, the last game that we played was the game. That was the game where you could have watched him playing outside of the offense, in my opinion.
I also disagree. I disagree with the whole notion that he's not the reason they win. If they took him out and put in Sam Darnold, I think they would lose games.
But that's the thing, Larry.
And even with all the talent, hold
on, wait a minute. It's not the fact if you take him out and put him with what we've had or worse, right? That's not the whole question. That's not the whole question proposed. If you take Brock Purdy out and you put him with literally everybody that was behind him, of course it's going to be better. That's why Brock is here. Brock is here because they didn't work. So if you want to name Brock against Jimmy, Trey, Chris Mullins, CJ Beathard, then you're going to be able to say, of course, that narrative fits you. It says, all right, well, yeah, all of the guys that didn't work, if you want to put those guys into place right now, then Brock works. That's reinventing the whip. That's there. My thing is that could you put other quarterbacks in this position that could do what Brock is doing better? That's the real question. If you want to look at Brock versus Jimmy, Brock versus CJ fucking Beathard, if you want to look at Brock versus Nick Mullins, it's not a discussion. It's not a discussion. But the question is Brock the best we got? And is what Brock is doing with the NFL, is it good enough? Could we find better? That's the real question. We've already gotten past the debate is if Brock is better than what we've had. He is. Cool. What's next?
Okie 49er says, I think bringing back JV shows what this organization feels about winning a Super Bowl. They want to get him a ring too. Absolutely. And I brought that up probably around the same time that you super chatted it. I just never got to it. Matthew Sanders says, preach, coach. Leadership can't be taught. JV up. We're still on the JV part of the conversation from the super chats.
That was an old super chat.
Larry's favorite name, Killamig, says, Dash, just for you, Larry.
Larry's favorite name.
Matt says, hey, coach, Piff Daddy 420 wants to know why you know so much football. He won't do a super chat, but he is in the chat. It's a question for you, coach. How do you know so much football?
I've been here since day one, and I've been willing to admit when I'm wrong way more than I'm willing to admit when I'm right. That's why I know so much about football. Just being beat into the ground by people who are way smarter than me.
It's a great answer. Dan says, what's up, Jesse, coach, and PP? Member for 14 months, by the way. Thank you, Dan. This right here is the best comment. I've been waiting to get to this
Bob
comment.
Is evangelizing right now.
I've been waiting to get to this comment for about 45 minutes, and it's finally here, and I can't wait for it. Cass Legion says, Jesse and coach, is it true that Larry likes to be in his underwear with personal heater under there during the lives? If Larry smiles, we got our answer.
What?
The warm undies, baby.
You better believe it. He does.
My studio is in a very, very cold room. There's no heater here, and there's no underwear wearing.
It probably smell like corn chips in that damn studio right now.
Matthew, circling back on the end of year or his vacation, he says, for the record, I'm 35 and in nursing school with straight A's. Well, congratulations to you, Matthew.
Man.
You're working your butt off. And it's never too late
a job that I would never do.
Yep.
That's a big job, man. Congrats.
Tough job. My daughter's a nurse. Very tough.
Matt says, every QB has to be a game manager. Imagine Cutler being able to manage a game. Why is it such a taboo thing to say?
I asked the same question to Larry. Why is game manager a disparaging sentiment? I'm like, Larry answered me because the innuendo is that he doesn't do enough.
It's just, you know, and I know the truth, which is it's just a way to say that you're not as good as the top tier guys.
I don't believe
nobody ever said, you know what, Joe Montana's a great game manager. No,
but
they don't
hold
say
on.
that.
But wait a minute. Larry, that's what you feel about it.
No, that's what it is.
See what I'm saying? But the fact that you're stamping what coded language. Hold on. Wait a minute. All I'm saying is that you've admitted that game manager is a coded word.
It's
correct.
It's a negative. There's a negative connotation with game manager. We all know that.
I'm willing to hear you. What you're saying is that game manager has negative connotations attached to it.
Yes.
All right. All I'm saying is that you need to understand that certain people understand that game manager is not a negative connotation. Being able to manage a game as a quarterback is not something that's shown as you can't get it done. And I would ask even further, what do you mean by can't get it done versus game manager? What are you trying to say? Because somebody who manages the game is a quarterback who does their job. It's a quarterback who he is asked to manage the game because he has requisite talent around him to win the game. So he has to manage the game.
Well, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. Today, Brock Purdy was asked this question about game manager. I think Grant, maybe somebody else. I forget who asked the question. And he's like, I'm not touching that. I'm not touching that. It's like, I'm not touching that. I don't want to talk about that. He basically hit the escape hatch. Didn't want to talk about it. And he didn't want to talk about it because he doesn't want to get into a thing with Cam. But also, it's just like he just doesn't want to get into the labels because it's not really a football label. It's just kind of a media label, game manager. So it's something that football people who talk about the game on TV, of which there are many, have kind of created this term. And if you said to any quarterback, any big time quarterback, or if I walked into the Purdy presser today, and if I said, "Hey, Brock, I just wanted to say, I just think you're one of the best game managers there are in the league." Everybody would think that I was taking a shot at him.
Why?
I don't know because of the history of the word, the way it's been discussed. If I had said, "Hey, Brock, I really think you're one," even if I complimented him, I think you're a great game manager. I think somebody would be like, "What?" The perception would be, and the feedback would be, "Why are you ripping our quarterback?" So it's got a negative connotation.
What's the
Why
negative
does it have a negative
connotation about it?
I don't know.
What is the negative connotation about a game manager?
Is that
in your opinion?
Is that what Cam just said?
If I could be so pressing.
Yeah. It's what Cam just said. That you're not winning the games, you're just not losing the games. That's how it's kind of portrayed. And I really don't believe in that. I just don't I can't even think of anybody that I would use that term for, really. Because I think it's kind of lazy. I think it's like it's an all-encompassing label that lazy people use to try to group people. But in reality, there's way better words and descriptive ways to go through these quarterbacks and delineate who's good and who's not. And I just think that it's a media thing. It's a media.
Let me put it like this.
term.
I'll say this. There was a time in football where the term game manager was perfectly acceptable to say. There was never a time where nobody shuddered at the word game manager. There was never a time where somebody made it a credentialed word, meaning that only certain professions use that word based on validity. There was a time in football where real football people used to say the words game manager. And they weren't put to the side as if they were speaking some different language. I think Cam is speaking from that era. I think Cam is speaking from an old NFL that does not exist anymore. And he sees Brock Purdy, Tua Tagovailoa, Jared Goff, and who else? Dak Prescott as game managers, because when Cam played, you had to be dynamic. If you were going to play from the quarterback, from the pocket, you had to be able to make every throw. Because if you didn't, there were parameters within the league that force you to be an athletic quarterback. Now, I feel as though that the quarterback is the most protected position in the league. And from an old salty boot, being an MVP winner, I think Cam is a little out of touch, but I'm not going to sit here and act like he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. The word game manager exists in football. It's not a media term. Okay? The reason why he said it is because other players have used it. Cam was calling the players of today game managers because of the type of football he played during his career. And what he sees in 2023 is game manager production. Now, if Cam is wrong, he's wrong. He doesn't see the NFL as it is today. But we're not going to sit here and discredit what he sees and act like game manager as a media term. Game manager's been used all around the league, bro. It ain't no ESPN thing. All right. It's been used.
Coach, respectfully, I've sat in rooms with coaches before who are pros, both in the Canadian League and the NFL, and I've never heard any of them ever use game manager. So the only time I've ever heard a game manager is through guys like Orlovsky or ESPN talking heads. That's it. And the other ignorant part of his statement is that those quarterbacks are not really all that alike. They really aren't. They're not alike. They're very. Can
I ask you something, Larry?
Yeah.
Can I? And this is coming from a genuine place of wanting to know. I think I might know the answer, but I do want to know. So, if they don't use that term,
game manager.
I would venture to guess that most coaches and scouts also don't talk about stats.
Right.
Okay. So then what are we doing? Can we not talk about stats? I'm just wondering where the gatekeeping stops.
You can talk about whatever you want.
Stats?
I'm just telling you what my experience has been.
I know.
And I'm not saying my experience is the end all be all, Jesse. I'm just telling you what my experience has been.
But they don't talk stats, right? Okay.
I mean, they all do talk about some stats, but it's not like that's not football. I mean, you're talking about personnel, you're talking about advantages, you're talking about scheme, you're talking about mismatches, you're talking about lots of things. But these like labels where this guy's a game manager, we don't really have a definition for it. We just know that it's a connotation for you're not elite. And it's kind of being used, I think, in this particular situation to kind of denigrate these guys. They're not elite. They just don't get you beat. And I think that's a way, way oversimplification of Dak, Goff, Tua, and Brock. That's all.
Okay. Keith Murphy says, how do you guys think the defensive injuries will affect us this weekend? It was actually the first topic that we had, but I will give you a brief answer. For the most part, we don't think it should have a major impact. Maybe it'll make the game slightly closer, but as long as everybody else is healthy, they should be good to go. And we believe in the depth of this defensive unit.
Definitely.
Matt says, I don't think Purdy has played enough to compare. Yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely in the conversation as far as, okay, is he good now? Yes. Is his first 2 years better than so-and-so? Absolutely, yes. I just don't think it's fair to say, hey, he's better than this player who has 10, 12 years. And I also think through the discovery of the conversation that Larry agrees with that. What he's saying is Purdy is right now better than their first 2 years in their career. And he would be right. Keith Murphy says later, Brock has the same amount of playoff wins as Dak. Yeah, but again, I hate that conversation because Dak was Purdy before Purdy. I mean, let's keep it a buck. 23 touchdowns, 4 interceptions his first year.
Dog, that's why I went through the whole. I hope the fans the supporters were understanding that. That's why I went through the whole like genesis of Dak, because it's the exact. If you look at it, it's carbon copy Brock Purdy. It's carbon copy Brock Purdy. And if the fans are fine with what Dak Prescott has become, I'm okay with it.
Casey Two Beards says, "Great show, gents. Thoughts on Nick Wright's love for Brock? I think Nick's one of the most entertaining people around. I think Nick definitely plays up his takes. I think his takes are pretty genuine, but he knows who's watching. If you watch Nick, for example, on his YouTube channel versus Fox, I think you get a different level of Nick Wright a more, you can stomach Nick Wright, I think, a little bit more on that level, even if his takes are outlandish. That's just my personal opinion. I respect what he does. I don't always agree with him, but I respect what he does. Keith Murphy says, Jesse, we got our Gale Sayers and Barry Sanders atop the running back rankings of 2 to 3 years. Hell, Gale only played 5 years.
And he's in the Hall.
But for sure. But I'm also the person, if you just ask my opinion, I can only talk about what my opinions are and be consistent. And Coach knows this because we've had this conversation. What have I said about Bo Jackson?
It's disgusting.
Greatest two-way athlete in the history of the country.
No.
Which he was
Bo.
Great, yes.
Who's the greatest two-way athlete in the history of the country?
But he doesn't take it beyond the greatness, like beyond like the one-off physicality. The consistency and the body of work is always what turns Jesse off. We have had many discussions about this, and I've argued. I can't believe you still feel this way about Bo, Jesse. Like
I'm just saying. So for me, the take is consistent. All I'm trying to say is the take is consistent from me. From me. That's the way I feel about it.
I will give you that.
So what is your what? I don't think I heard this. What is your take on Bo Jackson?
My take on Bo Jackson is that he is the most overhyped player of all time. Not from a talent standpoint. Very talented. But you're talking about a guy who has never rushed for 1,000 yards in this league. I understand it was 12-game seasons and whatever he was doing. But I can't say that he's a top 5 running back or top 10 running back of all time.
Well, he wasn't.
He hasn't put together a career to warrant it.
He wasn't. He would, but I mean, he
was a freak athletically, like one of the best athletes of all time. Period. Full stop. But he's not one of the best running backs of all time. He's just not.
I hear you. I mean, it's the same reason you can't say that Len Bias was great, but Len Bias was fucking great.
He was.
So a lot of it's about projection, right? Because now we're talking about the what ifs. Bo is the king of the what ifs. What if? What if he didn't get his
come on, man?
Dislocated? I mean, I'll say this. I think Bo was the greatest athlete this country's ever produced. I mean, maybe he might be like Jim Thorpe or I mean, think about it. I mean, this guy was an all-star baseball player who changed the geometry of the game. He ran up the outfield wall. He would hit a ground ball up the middle. He was standing on second. I mean, he was 230, also 230 pounds, who ran 4.19. In some ways, he was kind of like a 25th century type athlete, just well ahead of his time,
bro.
Yeah, I mean, he was crazy, but it didn't happen, right? I mean, it all fell apart. I mean, so you got to look at what it was, but how many people can we say were baseball all-star game worthy and had as good as tools you could make an argument that in the late 80s, he was the most exciting player in both sports.
Listen. Let me be clear. Hold on. Because this is what I hate. This is what I hate, though, Coach, because I know where this is going. When you say things, it automatically means this. And that's not all I'm saying is this. I had the Bo's Nose shirts and posters. Okay. I used Bo Jackson on Tech Mobile and all that. Listen, I understand it. And as an athlete, if the conversation is who is one of the greatest athletes of all time, Bo Jackson is right there, top 5. But people talk about him strictly as a running back and say he's one of the best running backs of all time. And I can't go. I'm not going to go for a player that doesn't have any sort of resume to warrant that. I'm just not.
But dog, running back is not a resume position.
It is a resume position. What do you mean?
It was okay, but Jesse, let me ask you this then.
It's both.
Let me ask you this. He did. It's not like he didn't play. He played in the SEC. He was a great player at Auburn. We all saw it.
I agree.
We all saw it. Then he became a cultural icon. He became an all-star baseball player. And it's not like this guy didn't play in the NFL. This guy played 4 seasons in the NFL. I mean, you could make an argument that Bo's career is not that much different than Sayer's career. It's not that much different than Earl Campbell's career. Is Earl Campbell? Are we not going to say that the Tyler Rose was awesome because he was short-lived because of the style and the lack of longevity? I mean, if Bo, I understand you if it was Bias, who he OD'd on draft night and we never saw Bias.
Yeah, like Lynn Bias.
And I think Bias, to me, when we talk about the great players,
he could have been better than Jordan, man.
I always bring up Bias because he played in the ACC at the same time as Jordan, and in some ways he was a way bigger star than Jordan in the ACC, which was the highest level of college hoop. He was an awesome player. He was kind of like a cross between, like Jordan and like Dominique or something. You know what I mean? He was a little bit of a cross between. He was almost like a LeBron before LeBron in some ways. So I don't know. He wasn't quite the distributor, but you know what I'm saying? He was an awesome player. So like he never played in the NBA. So like it's always a big what if, but Bo did play in the NFL and he played 4 seasons. Now you're right. He never had 1,000 yards rushing, but he also never played more than 11 games in a single season. He played 7, 10, 11, and 10, and never had 1,000 yards rushing. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying, Jesse, but man, the glimpse, it's more of it was just a glimpse, really, right?
I can't believe we're doing this. Okay, let's do it real quick because
was pretty special.
Don't chop that.
Jim Brown.
Don't go numbers.
No. We're talking about 11-game seasons, right? Jim Brown in a 12-game season. Jim Brown in a 12-game season, 1,527 yards.
When they want to tear somebody down, I'm going to pull out my pocket protector and talk about the numbers.
But Jim Brown, 12-game season.
Fucking dog.
Jim Brown played in an era where
1,500 yards. 12-game season, 1,329 yards. 12-game season, 1,257 yards. Come on, man. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, Jets. Like, I understand if you want to go with the numbers, then you could pick Bo Jackson apart. You could do it all day. You know what I'm saying? Like, Bo never had a season over 1,000 yards. The closest 1,000-yard season he had was 950 yards out of 1989 when he only played 9 out of 11 games. But dude, just like pound for pound, watching the man do his work.
I'm not arguing he wasn't a great athlete.
Like
the argument is not about him as an athlete. The argument is about him strictly as a running back. And does he deserve to go among the pantheon of great running backs? And the answer is unequivocally no. Not even close.
All I would say about
everybody puts him there. Everybody puts him there.
Bo played in the most talented era that the NFL's ever seen, and Jim Brown did not. And Jim Brown, I've interviewed Jim Brown. I mean, I met Jim Brown. I talked to Jim Brown about how he gathered the Crips and the Bloods at his house.
Jim Brown is the only Hall of Fame player that every other Hall of Fame player stood and clapped for every time he entered the room. Jim Brown is the fucking GOAT, period.
He's the man. He is. Right. Jim Brown is the big, he's the nuts in the room. He really is. He's the man's man. I'll give you that.
But it's kind of like saying Joe DiMaggio, because, I mean, you're talking about a guy who played before. He played in an era where there wasn't the greatest. The talent wasn't at the same level as it is today. Now, some people would say, or like Babe Ruth, the talent in baseball in the 20s was not as great as the talent of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And yet Babe Ruth is considered like the best baseball player. So, I mean, Jim Brown played in the late 50s to the mid 60s. The greatest era of the NFL was still years away at that point. I'm not trying to diminish Jim Brown. I'm really not.
I know you're not. I want to say this.
One of the greatest athletes the country ever produced was Jim Brown.
Jim Brown, to me, is a lot like Wilt Chamberlain, where a lot of people will be like, well, but this and this and this. But these guys could have played in any era. When you look at what they were athletically.
No doubt.
You know what I mean? Jim Brown, 6'3", 230 pounds, sub 4.5 40. That translates to all eras.
Right.
That
that's
that
Adrian
right there,
Peterson.
at worst, he's Derrick Henry in today's game. At best, he's Adrian Peterson, right?
So
and
Derrick Henry wasn't even Brandon
he's
Jacobs.
better than Adrian Peterson. I'll give him better than Adrian Peterson.
I'm saying in this era, if he were to play.
I'm going to say I'm going to give Jim Brown some
Larry.
Jim Brown's the greatest running back of all time.
He
is the modern day Jim Brown. Like, what do you mean he's better than Adrian Peterson?
He is better than Adrian Peterson.
I think most football historians, I mean, I'm not one of them, Coach, but most football historians, if you said Jim Brown, Adrian Peterson, who's better, I would say, if you were asking me, I would say 95% would say Jim Brown. Right? Come on. You're right. I mean,
today's in like Adrian when AP
we're never
was
really
doing his
gonna
thing,
know.
man.
I mean, no, I know. I mean, Adrian Peterson was incredibly talented. I'm arguing it both ways here because we're talking about different things. But I mean, Jim Brown didn't play in the most talented era, but
right.
I've got great respect for Jim Brown. Jim Brown's
I.
He's not only in the Hall of Fame, he's in the lacrosse Hall of Fame. I mean, he's
one
of the
here we go. We're bringing up knowing how to
seriously.
play chess because we know how to play.
Oh
football.
no, but I'm just saying
go.
he was a great all around athlete. That's all I'm saying.
He was. Jim Brown is a renaissance man, to be honest.
I got a Jim Brown signed football. So
do you?
Yeah, I do.
I'm outnumbered. Jim Brown is
Keith Murphy says, I knew Randy Moss was the GOAT his rookie year. He wasn't the GOAT, so you were wrong. And I want people to call it early. BS, wait and see. Listen, Keith, I've done this argument round and round before when we had our Brock Purdy conversation months ago, but I will rehash it very quickly for you. There is a difference in giving your opinion and saying unequivocally that opinion is right now with no proof. That is the difference. I have zero issue. In fact, I encourage people to say, hey, my opinion is this player is going to be X, Y, and Z. Or I think this player is not going to be very good. Yes, of course. We've got a forecast. We've got to have an opinion. I'm fine with that. But you then can't say that opinion has been proven right or wrong after 16 games of play. That's all I'm saying. Have the opinion, but don't be arrogant enough to think that your opinion is right or wrong based off of one season of play. It's just not. There's not enough proof.
We confuse a lot of things in this sports world. There's a whole industry out there of being first. So there's always that, right? There's always the people they want to be first. Schefter wants to be first. Shams wants to be. Woj wants to be. Everybody wants to be first. So I get that, and that's kind of, I don't know. Maybe it's like human nature. The simplest things you see kids in kindergarten, they start racing each other, right? They're racing. I'll beat you to the fence, whatever. Everybody, being first. So there's that. And I also thought Randy Moss was super special at Marshall, and I couldn't believe Dallas passed on him.
Yes.
That was unbelievable. I mean, Jerry Jones took Greg Ellis because he said that Greg Ellis was the kind of person that could babysit his kids. And if they hadn't had that whole Michael Irvin, issue or all the different problems that Irvin was having, and the Cowboys had their house that they took women to and this and that, if that whole thing hadn't bubbled to the surface the year before, then Randy Moss probably goes to Dallas.
You out here dry snitching, Larry. Stop dry snitching, man.
But Randy Moss was awesome with the Thundering Herd. And anybody knows Randy Moss's story. He was at Notre Dame. He was at Florida State. He got into a big
fight. And he went
to
Marshall, where I was at Huntington, West Virginia. And he was a household name. Yeah. Came through, shut down all numbers. As a matter of fact, when I was at Marshall, I got a chance to actually watch Randy Moss train by himself.
Yeah, he was
1,000 balls. 1,000 balls off the jugs machine. Let me tell you something about Randy Moss, man. I've seen Randy Moss work 2 times in the offseason by himself. And it wasn't even in Huntington. It was in Rand, West Virginia.
Which is his hometown.
Randy Moss is one of the hardest workers I have ever seen in my life. I seen Randy Moss catch 1,500 balls from the jugs in a workout machine, and that was after he was done working out. Like it's different levels to this, man. Like he's one of the GOATs for a reason. When you see a guy or you see something, you see a show, whatever, and it's supposed to be the best. You go to a restaurant, you eat a meal, and it's supposed to be the best, and you walk away from it, and you're like, this wasn't the best. I've had something better. I've seen something better than this. But every now and then, you come up against an experience where you're forewarned that this is the best. And you go through an experience where you're just saying, I've never seen anything like this before. That's what it was like watching Randy Moss work out.
I think he's the most talented receiver I've ever seen.
I never seen anything like that before. 1,500 balls off the jugs machine. Unreal.
To me, the greatest of all time. Rice, Randy, and Owens in that order. But I think Randy's the greatest talent. But Rice had it all, right? Rice had the unbelievable
and
drop.
T.O. was the baby.
What's that? And T.O.
Was the baby.
T.O. was spectacular too. But I would say Rice is 1, Randy was 2, and Owens was 3. That's how I'd have it.
Mr. Blue Magic says, who remembers Chad Pennington in his first 2 years? Yeah, he didn't do much in his first 2 years. He didn't play much. Chad Pennington was cool, though. Before his arm completely gave out.
Another Marshall guy.
I liked him. Yeah, and he played. I mean, speaking of Randy, he played with Randy. Killamig says, I feel like I'm listening to Shannon Sharp and Skip. This is going back to about 40 minutes ago. Brandon says, Larry in a T-Balky voice, what has Wilkes brought? Oh, gosh.
Let's go, Larry. Don't let us down.
You know, it's so funny you bring this up because Randy never tore the ACL. Jerry did, all right? Jerry tore that ACL. Thank you, Warren Sapp. And as far as Steve Wilkes, he's a hell of a guy. And he also has not torn the ACL.
Perfect. Flav says, I love Brock, but I still don't pay him unless he wins a Super Bowl. If he can't do it with this roster, he won't after you pay him. If he doesn't, keep the team strong. If he doesn't, then keep the team strong and look for another guy on a rookie contract.
What?
I agree 1,000% with
Coach agreeing with Flav. This is wild.
What?
I agree. I'm not going to lie. I agree with this is news. Flav is 100% right.
Okay, let me throw a scenario then. They get to the Super Bowl this year. Brock throws for 395 yards and 4 touchdowns. And Steve Wilkes' defense gets toasted because Greenlaw's hurt, Warner got hurt, and Mooney's hurt. And they just wound up in the Super Bowl and they get beat. Then they've lost the Super Bowl, but Brock was awesome. You still feel the same way? It's a team
First of all,
sport.
hold. Let me ask you. Don't ask that question and then go into your diatribe.
I'm just saying it's a team sport. You can't make blanket statements like that.
It's a team sport, but you have to realize I love Brock. I love the 49ers. But you have to realize that we are a complementary team. Half of the points and the efficiency of the offense is because of the fact that we have a all-world defense, and we have a defense that is better than most of the teams that we face on a daily basis. These guys are operating off short fields and being able to if they don't operate off short fields offensively, at the very least, they get to stall out and get the defense to give them back 3 and outs maybe 3 or 4 times before they get their shit together. That's not a lot of contingencies that average offenses have. And to be honest with you, I love Brock. I think that Brock is the best thing that has ever happened to Kyle Shanahan. He's young enough. He's capable enough. Kyle, you'd be an idiot to get rid of this kid. But the truth is, we moved off of Trey Young after we moved off of Trey Lance after 4 games. Zach Wilson is about to get moved. That's a fact. All right. I'm over there in Carolina looking at Bryce Young. His ass is about to get moved. The fact of the matter is that I understand that Brock is a great asset. He's an amazing story. But don't be fooled by what Brock has given us as a singularity player versus where the organization stands, where they see Brock. Because I feel as though that the organization is letting us fall in love with Brock because he's winning for now. But the way the league is set up right now, ain't nobody committing to no quarterbacks unless they elite. If they ain't elite, they're getting moved. I feel that's where the NFL is right now. I'm here to hear anything that's different.
There's an awful lot of rookies, and there's an awful lot of rookies who bust. Look at all these. Go look at the rookie quarterbacks that have gone in the draft in the first 3 rounds for the last 25 years. There's so many more busts than hits. Just because you don't win the Super Bowl with this guy this year doesn't mean I would move off him for another rookie. Like, are we thinking that this 49er team that's now Shanahan's been here since 2017? They traded 3 number 1 picks for Trey Lance. They've been looking for a franchise quarterback all this time. And now they have this guy who's playing great. Now you're just going to kick him to the curb because he's a little pricey to go try your hand at another rookie quarterback. Flav, how many rookie quarterbacks do you think the Niners are going to have to draft?
To Jimmy.
Yeah, but how many realistic
Jimmy took us to a Super Bowl
are they
and
going
we ousted his ass
before they find the next star? I don't buy
Larry, we had Jimmy playing on a separate field. We
don't
gave him
trust
his
them to
exit
do
interview,
it.
and he took us to a Super Bowl, and we got rid of his ass. I love Brock, but let's not talk about like the organization isn't capable of doing this.
It's too narrow of a focus to keep talking about Jimmy. Jimmy, it's not productive. This is not Jimmy's not even part of this. All I'm saying is, I think that wouldn't we all agree? I mean, I think Lynch, the world of Lynch. I think the world of Shanahan, but I also absolutely think that those guys lucked out with Brock Purdy. They lucked out.
Larry, I agree with you.
Otherwise, if they knew he was awesome, they would have taken him.
Brock Purdy. Hold on. Larry, I think that Brock Purdy is the best thing that's ever happened to the Niners. Do the Niners think that Brock Purdy is the best thing that's ever happened to them?
But do you think they got lucky with him? Because I do.
I 100% agree that.
So why would you kick him to the curb and take a chance on another Larry?
This is the first time me and you can be white and black brothers. Larry, I agree. They did not call this.
They got lucky.
They got lucky, bro.
Totally.
They got so lucky. But my thing is that I think they're stupid enough to think that they actually chose this kid and to not listen, Larry. When you get lucky,
choose them, but they got lucky.
Larry, when you get lucky, you're grateful, correct? When you get lucky, you're kind of like to your friends in the background, even to the people who you maybe wanted to fake it till you make it to. Cool. But when you get to your friends who really know you in the background, what are you saying? Poof. Oh my God, shit could have got ugly, right? My problem is that I don't think the Niners feel that way. I think for some reason they feel as though that by hook or crook, our system still worked and we still got our guy in the building. I don't think they see that. And by thinking that way, you don't covet what you have in Brock. I think Brock saved our bacon. I think he took us out of a horrible position. If Brock isn't good, if Brock isn't what he is, like having a base as a quarterback in the NFL, right, coming in ready right away in order to be able to just learn an offense off the fly, if Brock isn't that guy, we're looking at Kyle being on a hot seat. That's where we are right now. Would you agree? If Brock isn't
probably, which is also
the type of quarterback he is, Kyle would be on the hot seat.
Absolutely, which is also why I wouldn't do what Flav is saying here. I wouldn't just because I hear what he's saying. He's saying they've got a quarterback on a rookie deal. It's easier to build a team when you have a quarterback on a rookie deal, but it's really hard to find a rookie quarterback. And I wouldn't think that they like give you an example. We just all saw Brock come of age, but like, do you feel like you could handicap next year's quarterback class right now? If I said there's Drake May, and there's Penix, and there's Bo Nix, there's all these guys, and we've all watched
quarterback over what Brock has given us right now.
We've watched all these guys, right? But I don't feel, and I feel like I know what I'm watching, but I don't feel like I can handicap that accurately. It's the hardest thing to do is find a quarterback. So the last thing I think they should do is kick him to the curb and go for another rookie and another contract, another quarterback and a rookie contract. I know it sounds great. It's just super hard to do. That's all. To guys, pick the right one.
Do me a favor, read the private chat. But Flav, I think we're missing the most obvious point here, which is they get a second chance to look at it next year before they got to make the decision. So you can't do it off of this year. Now, if he falters this year and next year and it's on him, sure. But he does get a second crack at it because the contract is still cheap next year. Brother Bob says, what the F we talking about Cam so much? I'm not reading the second half of that. Mitch says, damn, is Jesse allowed to talk? This was about an hour ago. Brother Bob says, Nails, you red and mad. You good, bro? Here's $2. Jimmy says, good show, gents. Brock is the Professor X of QBs. His strength is experience and brain power. He is Neo and sees the data flow of the Matrix. I think Cam looks like a demented holiday nutcracker. He said, he referenced it. His outfit was actually from a movie. So there you go. Mr. Blue Magic says Larry's mad that Cam mentioned Brock.
I am. You're right.
Joey says this is fun. Thank you guys. This is going back to the whole debate. Brother Bob says Nails here's $2. How's the fam? Pause. Matt says, Jesse, I got 4 inches of snow up here. Matt showed me his Christmas lights, and every time he does, I'm like, the Christmas lights are great, but snow, gross.
Where is he? Where is Matt? Is he in
I don't know.
Where are you, Matt?
I don't know exactly where he lives. All I know is snow is gross. Okie 49er says, Coach and Larry need to practice UFC. I see what you did there, Okie, and I don't like it because he knows what he's doing. This goes back to a show the other day where we said people call MMA or UFC MMA. It's funny. Anyways, Brother Bob says PP got into it with Vish, Coach Twice, and Ryan. I don't think that he got into it today with Coach.
No.
Come
This
on,
is great.
Coach and I are good.
Yeah,
And
we're
me and
good.
Vish are
We're good.
I'm not Ryan. I don't know.
Keith says it used to be a term game manager was reserved for quarterbacks that handed off and got 10 to 15 points and depended on the defense. I think Dak and Purdy go further than that. They're dropping 40 regularly.
Can I
Dak
ask a
doesn't when he
question?
plays the 49ers. Go ahead.
So I love the fact that the last commenter brought this up. Game manager is also attached to what the older NFL used to categorize as a game manager. Somebody that can get the ball out, not a lot of points, keep the offense ahead of the sticks. And, this was in the 3 yards in the cloud of dust era of the NFL. Could it be that game managers with today's NFL can still put up 30 points a game? As long as they're managing a good enough offense? I mean, that's just a question.
Well, I'll say this. The 49ers averaged 29.9 points a game in 2019. And we all know what I think about the quarterback at the time.
Exactly.
Flav says, I'm not going to read the whole thing, Flav. And by the way, that was not a comparison with Brock. That was not what I was doing there. I was just saying we've seen this offense operate at a much higher level than it probably should have with a quarterback of that caliber. But there was a lot of great players around him. Flav said, if I cared about what Cam thought, and I'm not reading the rest. Sorry, Flav. Tyler says 63 points were given up by the Chargers, guys. I just saw that. And I want to say that I lost. I'm going to lose in the fantasy football playoffs thanks to Austin Eckler getting no run tonight. Thank you.
I don't want to hear shit about Justin Herbert being like the average guy.
They
got blown up by
scored 63. They scored 3
and the Raiders
last
are
week.
trash.
But they scored nothing last week, right?
63 points. Yeah.
No, last week.
I think. Yeah, 3 points, I think.
Oh, my God. It's amazing.
Knees said, JC said weeks in advance that when Brock loses, it will only be on his Patreon only. Point proven. It was smart marketing to get subscribers, not an agenda. I didn't say he had an agenda. And if I did, I misspoke. I don't mean he has an agenda from the standpoint that he's trying to like curtail everything he says.
Oh, hold on. Wait a minute.
Hold on. What I'm saying is he clearly is making content just like anybody else, and that his thoughts on Brock Purdy don't necessarily all the way come from a point of analysis. I do think that there is some bias on his part there, being a guy who wasn't supposed to make it in the league and seeing a guy who he sees himself in go out there and do what he's doing. It's like he's one of the guys. He's doing it for us guys that couldn't make it. Him and Chase Daniels and all of us. You know what I mean? They see themselves in Brock Purdy. So that's all I'm saying. And the fact that he wouldn't put that out for everybody else to see when he loses makes me question a little bit about what his thought process is there.
Cap.
But he does take on Shanahan, interestingly enough, and you would think Shanahan would be the guy that he would protect because Shanahan's the guy that could theoretically hire him, right? I don't know.
Nah, because Shanahan is the guy that has always told him during his entire career that he's a backup quarterback, and the tenets of the offense need to be tailored towards Brock to help him better more because I sucked. Because I was JT O'Sullivan. I know, like, dude, honestly speaking, it's not rocket scientists. I am so tired of treating quarterbacks and former quarterbacks like they're fucking brain surgeons. It's quarterback. It's a game, okay? You're not a king. You're not a duchess. You're not a duke. You're not some fucking senator. You played a position in a game. Stop trying to act like this shit is some type of regal position. Like you have to be some type of character. You have to have some type of character barometer to be a quarterback. That's what bothers me about all of these guys talking about quarterback. It's almost as if to say quarterback is so much of a professional position that I was a backup at it and I sucked. And you should even still listen to me. Fuck out of here. You aren't good. If somebody who was a running back who was half-assed wanted to sit up here and talk about how great of a running back is, everybody would be saying, well, you weren't that great of a running back. If a receiver came up here and wanted to talk about how guys are good or bad at receiver, and he wanted to put out tape, everybody on YouTube will be saying, well, you didn't catch 1,000 yards a season. You didn't catch 25 balls a season. But for some reason, every milk dick quarterback, milquetoast average quarterback can come out here and talk about the nuances of the game. Kurt fucking Bittencourt and JT O'Sullivan can come out here and talk about, oh, this is what I see at the quarterback position. And it was like, bro, you were trash. You were trash. You were mediocre. But for some reason, because it's quarterback, we all give it a pass. Quarterbacks are not equivalent to lawyers. They're not firefighters. They're not cops. They're not soldiers, okay? They're quarterbacks. That's it. I'm sick of it, bro. I'm sick of this virtue signaling towards quarterbacks. Fuck out of here. I'm tired of that shit.
I just want to say, JT O'Sullivan, I've had you on the show, respect you. Coaches' opinions do not reflect the opinions of Last Second Sports.
Whatever, JT.
But I also want to say this. The reason that I wanted to replace the word agenda from the last super chat is because I feel like agenda is nefarious, and that's not where I think he's coming from. But I definitely think that he is doing what he can to pump his channel. So, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just the reality of the situation. Brother Bob says, you mean JTO is biased, like someone on the show? I think we're all a little bit biased. Flav says, Cam relied almost completely on natural talent. That's clearly what impresses him. Brock relies on almost everything other than talent. I don't think Cam can comprehend it. I think he can comprehend it. I don't think he's a dummy. But I do think that, much like we just said, JT and some of these guys lean on Brock, I bet you Cam leans on the Josh Allens and the Justin Herberts and the another big name athletic quarterback, because that's who he was. So he identifies with those players and probably thinks the world of those types of players. So I think this goes both ways. TJ says no underwear. So so are you free balling, Larry?
Yes,
oh,
I'm free
gosh.
balling. Thank you.
Perfect. Murray says what Cam does not get is what he does not get is that their system is that good and efficient off script. QB plays ATW I don't know, are or are not simply not required frequently, which is a world Cam does not understand. I butchered that. I'm sorry. It's 1 a.m. over here. You deserve me to reread that again. I don't know what the ATW is. What Cam does not get is that their system is that good and efficient that off-script QB plays simply not required frequently, which is a world that Cam does not understand. Basically saying that Brock Purdy doesn't necessarily have to go off script and do all the things that Cam did, but that does not make him a quarterback that is not worthy of an MVP award. Got you. Killamig says a QB is a leader and has different. What is up with the tight guys?
Different roles on the field.
Okay. Different roles on the field. To just say that you're just a good game manager, it's offensive. We all know it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Blue Magic says, Larry, you called Alex Smith a game manager.
Right. I'm saying I just described what I would think of as a game manager. And I do think that is not meant as a compliment. It's meant as a way to denigrate.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, Alex Smith was the first pick in the draft. He should have been an elite quarterback. And I think he was better in Kansas City, but for the Niners, I think he topped out as kind of a game manager. I do. But I don't.
I can respect that. I can respect that.
I mean, when I think of game manager, I think of him.
Okay. Matt says, I miss talking about BA. He's elite. Okay. Flav says, thanks for hosting the debate, Jess. And then he says, Jesse's doing his online Christmas shopping right now. TJ says, I'm gonna. Okay. The next person to stay game manager. Hey, Larry, what did you used to call Alex Smith? Okay. So, all right. Flav says he couldn't beat out Mac Jones and no one wanted him because he's desperate for attention. He's loving this.
That's true.
I'm sure he is. Absolutely.
I agree with that, Flav.
He is loving it. And you know how he's loving it? Because, first of all, his channel's killing it, by the way. So he didn't necessarily need this. But this is how you know he's loving what's going on. That show was out for nearly 10 days before it got the publicity it got. His marketing team went back and changed the thumbnail and title to that show so that everybody knew exactly what show to go watch to see his full comments. So he knew it. I mean, after the fact, he didn't expect it to take off like that. But after the fact, you got to cash in. And I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't see anything wrong with what JT's doing either. I just can call him spade.
Taking shots at Brock Purdy has become an industry.
I mean, well, ho. The same way you got to say taking shots at Brock Purdy has become an industry, backing Brock Purdy has become an industry.
Thank you. It goes both ways.
I disagree.
I would say, Jesus Christ, Larry.
I would
Larry,
come on. I disagree.
Man.
I disagree.
Come on.
Look at all the people that take shots at him routinely, and look at the attention they get.
Man, every middle of the road quarterback. Hold on, listen.
People who say good things about Brock don't.
You know what annoys me? You know what annoys me about the Brock Purdy fodder is not the fact of the guys who genuinely understand that for what Brock is, he's perfect for what we have, right? Though I respect anybody who understands the history of the Kyle Shanahan regime and sees that Brock Purdy is literally the best thing that we have ever had. As far as fit, as far as context, as far as talent, youth, and money. That's why he's perfect. But when the people come along and say that a 2-year starter is blindly better than multiple year starters who've proven it over consistency, I call cap. I think that's bullshit. I think those guys are just trying to ride the wave, because anybody who's trying to put Brock up in that status hasn't truly saw Brock, because what Brock is giving us isn't above and beyond talent that you can chart out for the years to come. Brock is giving us better than we've ever seen what the 49ers have done in offense. And because of that, we're winning. The fact is that we have an all-world offense and defense. We have a roster. We needed a guy to tie it together. Brock is that guy. And there's future and potential there.
Let me let's not talk in feelings. Let's talk in facts. Okay. Chase Daniel came out of nowhere, started reviewing film this season, and it's almost all Brock Purdy based. Was where his base came from. This man out of nowhere comes in and has 33,000 subscribers on YouTube in about a 2-month time span, basically starting the whole premise of his channel on Brock Purdy's shoulders.
I haven't watched him, but people that I've talked to said he's good. You're saying he's not good?
I'm not saying he's bad. That's not what I'm saying.
And that's probably why he's got followers.
No.
Daniels, stop.
What? He's probably pretty good because there's an appetite for people breaking down film.
Dog, Larry, stop. Ain't nobody got an appetite for watching no silent ass tape. Everybody got an appetite for people propping up Brock Purdy, and Chase Daniel hopped on the caboose. Come on.
Propping up, coach. He's
his top 6 videos.
I mean, nobody needs to prop this guy up. He's playing well. Nobody's propping up anybody.
He's a gatekeeper, man.
Oh, wow.
5, 6. 6 of his top 11 videos on his channel are all Brock Purdy related, including his most watched video by a wide margin. Trust me,
but
he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, but I mean, there are other people that are breaking down film, and they're all doing pretty well. Would you say? I mean, who's breaking down film right now? Who's not doing really well? Who?
What's his name? Ex-quarterback for the Vikings. Slow, whatever his name is.
Struggling.
He's got like 3,000 subs.
Who?
Exactly. Right.
Why
exactly.
you gonna make us put him out there, bro? We're not gonna name the guys who's struggling, Larry. That's unfair.
No, I'm just saying. I've noticed that. I mean, and this is just what I'm noticing. I'm noticing that almost everybody who's breaking down film who has a decent perspective on it is doing really well. I just think there's a big appetite for it. I think there's a lot of people, more fans know more than ever. They want more tutelage and they want more inside word from generally guys who are, I don't doubt it. I'm just saying it seems like more of an industry to go against the Brock Purdys of the world. Why do you think Nick Wright goes against him? Why do you think all these shows go against him? You don't see that many positives.
Larry,
positives on these shows.
There's only 2 people. There's only 3 people that have come out and outwardly said that Brock ain't the guy.
Who?
It's Cam Newton, Shannon Sharp, and Nick Wright. Who else?
I mean, lots of people locally, of course, but yeah, maybe. But I mean, there aren't that many commentators, period. It just seems like when you want to rip, that's kind of the rip. It's like, hey,
I feel like a lot of people who have a loud voice in the NFL, Louis Riddick, Dan Orlovsky, Chase Daniels, JT O'Sullivan, Rex Ryan, all of these guys who have big voices, they love to come out and say, I'm so tired of people doubting Brock Purdy. There's only been 3 people that outwardly have the balls to say, I don't think Brock Purdy is what people say he is. It's been Shannon Sharp, Nick Wright, and fucking who's the last guy?
Cam Newton.
That's it. Everybody else is on board.
Now
we're all just talking about who doesn't believe, and there's only been 3 people who've come out and said they don't believe.
It's week 15. It's almost an official deal. The guy's on the verge of winning the MVP. I mean, at this point, if you're coming on board, it's like, hey, I mean, what the heck? Get out front, call it a parade, right? I mean, the guy's on the way to either winning the MVP or being the runner-up for the MVP. So, I mean, now, yeah, people are, but I think there's been more than a few people ripping him, but whatever. Let's move on. I don't want to debate this all night.
I think that both ways you can get your clicks. Did I read that last one?
No.
Oh, yeah. Guys like Sherm said it's BS today. Yeah, again, we pick and choose what football players we want to listen to if they back our takes or not. Matt says Barry Sanders, greatest running back of all time. Not going to argue that. I think it's him and Jim Brown. Those are my 2 anyways.
I would go with Walter Payton, and I like Earl Campbell, but
I love Earl Campbell. I don't think Earl. We'll have this talk. This is what's great. Hold on. This is what's great about this group. If there is a palette for this, you guys have to let us know in the comments of any of our shows. We'll go back and read them. If there's a palette for conversations in the offseason that aren't just fully 49ers related, like if we do a 49ers show but we throw in, hey, what's your top 5 running backs of all time? If you guys are interested in that, you've got 3 people here, and Vish also, I know, would be a part of this, who love the history of the game, love football in general, not just 49ers, and would love to have those types of conversations if there is a palette for it. If not, we won't do it. It's a 49er channel.
It's classic barroom talk.
Yeah. So Flav says, can someone point me in the direction of the Niners channel? Somehow I ended up in the Cam Newton channel. Big Primo says OJ 2003 in 14 games. And also, let's not forget that Barry in 14 games got his 2,000 yards as well. He started out the season, I think, with 53 rushing yards in the first 2, and then got exactly 2,000 in the final 14. Mm-hmm. Carson says, what is the max dollar amount per year we would pay per? The salary cap's going to change so much in 2 years. He's going to have a whole nother year to prove who he is. I think this is way too early to have this conversation.
40.
Respectfully.
40. Say 40, roughly 40. I mean, obviously, if he, didn't Carr make 44? So, I mean,
something like that.
Yeah.
Mr. Blue Magic says, I met Chad Pennington his first full 2 seasons. Yeah, he did. He was good before he had hurt his shoulder, man. Or it was his shoulder, I think.
Yeah, elbow and shoulder, I think.
Oh, yeah. You're right. It was both. Holland Tracy says, Coach, you do not love Brock. Stop lying. But we can all agree he is on a trajectory that is closer to Breeze than Romo.
Closer to Breeze than Romo? I mean, no, I don't love any player. I'm glad you pointed that out. I'm glad that your comment pointed out that you do love Brock.
Season, and now he's Drew Brees. My God. I'm not doing it again.
Let's give him some light.
I'm not doing it again. I'm not doing it again. We've done
I want to give him some light.
Listen, it's 1 a.m. I got to be up in 5 hours. I got to take a piss, and I got 21 more of these things to go. I'm not doing it again. Flav says, Larry, I think he will get it done. But if he doesn't with this roster, you think he will, he will paying him $40 million? No way. Instead of putting yourself in purgatory, start rebuilding again.
No, Flav. I love you, Flav, but no. This is your guy. Just go with this guy.
Dazza says, I asked this a couple of nights ago. If you would pay Brock Purdy $45+ million, also, he will have to play without a Hall of Fame left tackle soon. This roster is going to be so different in 2 years. We're going to find out a lot about Brock Purdy when things start to change and he gets paid. Listen, Brock Purdy is, barring something catastrophic happening, regardless of what our thoughts are, Brock Purdy is going to get paid, and he's going to be the quarterback.
He deserves to get paid.
Going to happen. And quite frankly, to Coach's point, he does deserve to get paid. He's getting paid $900,000 right now. He is so severely he's criminally underpaid right now. So
the one thing though you got to remember is that the Niners did waste 3 number ones that they would have, that they might will have going forward. So
what that mean to Brock?
Well, hopefully it means a starting left tackle, a starting great guard. I'm just saying they're not going to have the money. And their best chance to win a Super Bowl with him is now on a rookie contract, clearly. But they will have some number ones.
But this is what's nuts to me. What's crazy to me is that for an hour, we can sit here and have all of these back and forth conversations about, me pressing the conversation to have the real conversation. And it's like, oh, Coach doesn't like Brock. Coach is hating on Brock. Coach really doesn't believe in Brock. But then you, the number one Brock supporter, can sit in the same breath and say, well, wait a minute. We got to make sure that we keep everybody around him. We can't pay him, because if we pay him, then that means that everything's going to shift. It's like, dude, you got to understand the algorithm of the NFL. If you think a guy at quarterback is the man, then automatically you're saying that he can get it done without weapons around him, because he can do it. So what's the difference? If you think that Brock can get it done with the team that we have, so you think that Mahomes isn't the guy then?
No, I'm just saying, you're just said, let's not go in circles here. It's a team sport. All right. You got to have talent around you. Mahomes got into the Super Bowl, didn't have tackles, lost. Mahomes has got a really great, he's in this prime. Right now, Mahomes is in what I would call the super prime. Wouldn't you agree? He's like 28, 27, whatever he is. He should be absolutely on top of his game, but he's got terrible receivers. It's a team game. You got to have talent. That's why it's the balance of, yeah, you're going to have to pay Brock more, but you're going to also maybe have different players, and it's a year-to-year deal at this point. That's all.
Are the 49ers a Super Bowl team after Brock gets his deal?
If they draft well, right? Because that means it's going to be a premium put on who they draft. Yeah, because they won't be able to sign everybody, so they have to hit on their draft picks. Only if they draft well.
Flav says, I know he gets a second crack at it. If he doesn't win by next year, the team will be aging. If he balls out, better to trade him for a haul and rebuild. I hear you, Flav, but also it comes down to the whole point that I think Coach is trying to make. If he's elite, you pay elite quarterbacks and you keep trying because the window is always open when you have an elite quarterback. If he's not elite, then you move on from him. We'll find out. We will find out. But he is going to get paid somewhere. He's likely going to get paid here. And he does deserve to get paid. He's not getting paid right now. Matt says upstate New York outside of Albany. That's where he lives, where all that gross snow is.
Get ready to shovel snow.
S. Dot says, great show, gents. Don't want to watch ish else. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Or woman. Sorry. You. Thank you. Sean says, yeah, he knows what a game changer is. As we look at his Michael Westbrook dressing funky Pee Wee Herman style and Fred Flintstone Grand Poobah hat, come on. And Flav, bro, you thought Jimmy was a high-end quarterback.
He did. That's another thing that Flav gets away with. Flav comes in here and comments all the time, right? But Flav doesn't want to own the fact that he was a huge Jimmy stan. We remember you, Flav. You were a huge Jimmy stan, and you used to act like Jimmy was fucking Peyton Manning. So you got to own that, Flav. You got to own it.
Before we lecture him, let's remember that about 65% of the chat was all in on Trey Lance as well.
Hold on a second. Here's what I want to say about that. I don't like the fact that and I know you're not saying this, Coach, but it's sports. To ask for an apology on a sports take or bend the knee because you were wrong on this sports take, so now you can't talk sports ever in the future unless you're willing to apologize. Like, nah, F all that. Have your opinion. Lean on that opinion. If you're wrong, fine. If you're right, great. Move on. It's not that big of a deal. It really is not that serious. But this is a big deal. Flav says,
hold on. No.
What?
No.
We all make right calls, wrong calls.
I owned Ryan fucking Tannehill. I own that.
That's fine. I'm not saying don't own it.
Ryan Tannehill to my balls. And I had to own that. I didn't get to run away from it.
I didn't say run away from it.
Me about it.
But coach, in fairness, you owned it. Okay, you owned it. But guess what? You got a channel that's growing and people want to hear what you have to say. And just because you made a mistake, hey, guess what? You know what that makes you? Human. Join the party. The rest of us are all human.
And it's not even a mistake. It was an opinion.
You're over here giving Flav contingencies.
All I'm saying is that we give opinions that are over time. You know, we're proven right. We're proven wrong. You know what?
JW, put it in there. 9-8. I owned it. I took my fucking lumps. This fan base is fucking relentless. So Flav should take the same thing. Flav went out all summer. Flav was out all years. Flav, you. Years. You've talked about Jimmy G being the greatest quarterback of all time. He's sitting the bench now, Flav. You've got to put up with that. We all do.
Okay, but here's the thing.
For Jimmy G, I've gotten all the racist comments. I've gotten the sports comments, all of them about Ryan Tannehill.
That makes Flav wrong, but it doesn't make his next comment wrong. Let's all agree there, right? Let's all agree. I thought Carlos Hyde was going to be awesome. All right. I'm Larry Krueger. I thought Carlos Hyde was going to be awesome.
Larry, you don't get the same scrutiny as coach. Like Larry,
no, but I
you're
do.
wrong.
I do.
People just forget about it. We're wrong. Jesse's wrong. And Jesse, when you're wrong, how many times do you hear about it, Jesse?
Oh, I hear about it every day. What are you talking about?
Relentlessly. Like the only contingency that I give you, Larry,
I'm hearing about Ayuk from
you've got a personal, super chatter that is on you and Brother Bob. None of us have a Brother Bob.
The check on McEwen in upstate New York, bringing up Ayuk. Come on, dude. We hit, we miss. It's life. It's all right.
Really, this is the most important comment, which is, can Larry and Coach debate the true meaning of milk tick? Brother Bob says, he said lawyer, I am, I can't see what that says. JTO is trash. All right.
JTO's not trash. Come on. He wasn't a great quarterback, but I
think that's what he's talking about.
That's what he's talking. That's what he's talking.
Good and whatever.
He's fantastic. JT O'Sullivan is fantastic. He is, but he's also making money just like anybody else. So
he's hoping to get him on Wednesday.
I've had him on. I've had him on. I just don't.
Yo, I love you, Larry. I love you, Larry.
I just don't. Larry, you know where I come from on this stuff. I am not in the business of putting down people with platforms, whether they are big or whether they are small.
Okay.
That is the way that I am.
And that is a good approach, and one that I agree with.
Okay. From a platform standpoint, I do stand corrected. Jesse, you are always teaching me. Yes. From a platform standpoint, I would never hate on another content creator trying to do the same thing that I'm doing. I would never do that.
It's bad.
If I ever insinuated that JT O'Sullivan or any other quarterbacks were wrong about their takes based off of their professionalism, that is not what I'm trying to go to. I was just bringing up the irony of them talking about professional quarterbacks when they themselves were not good professional quarterbacks. That's all I'm saying. But as far as content is concerned, they deserve just as much as a voice as anybody else, if not more so. They can put out their expertise of what they've done in their lives to leverage their new content creator platforms, just like the next man. I am not hating on that. I was just bringing out a little bit of irony. That's all.
John says system quarterback is an outdated phrase. Jesse, Larry, coach. Every QB in the NFL is in a system. Just depends on if it's a good one or not. I think great quarterbacks transcend systems no matter what. But either way. Okay, Rob says Cam listed himself in the comparison, so his stats are fair game. It's not discrediting him just for his opinion. Okay. Mr. Blue Magic says, okay, Larry, you said you don't use game manager because it's disrespectful to QBs, but you did call Alex Smith one. Okay.
No, they asked. So you do you think he's. But Mr. Blue Magic, I was being asked to define I don't use it. I've never heard any scout that I've talked to use it. I sat in rooms where we game planned. I never heard coaches, coordinators, or head coaches ever use it. All I'm saying is it's kind of more of a media term than it is a actual football term. I guarantee you, Kyle Shanahan, when he's sitting around with his coaches, don't go, well, guys, would you call him a game manager? That's too generic, it's not inside football. It's more of like a media football thing. That's all I'm saying.
Joseph says, here's $1. Samir says, BP is not your little brother, is Grant's rebuttal to those making a career off of praising Brock Purdy. And Grant is not wrong. I meant in this one instance, he's not wrong. Okay, fair enough, Samir. Killa Mig says, Larry loves to push the coach's buttons. I love it.
I love it. Listen. Let me
Saturday at 9 a.m. Join us.
Killa Mig, Larry and I like to push each other's buttons. We know what we're doing. We know.
9 a.m. Saturday morning. Join us. It's fat.
You got to.
Fat audience.
Mr. Blue Magic says, Larry backs anyone that praises Brock, period.
That's right. I love Brock, and Brock loves everybody. No, I mean, I'm a big Brock fan. I won't, come on, at this point, you guys all know that.
Black Keys says Joy Taylor and Shady McCoy rip Purdy daily. I don't know. I don't watch them.
Shady McCoy, though, owned the Eagle loss, and he did not try to back away. I respect the hell out of him for that.
Yeah, I don't know. Hell of a running back, though. Let's see. Matt McEwen says Larry's the general of gatekeepers. I don't know what that comment is based off of.
I'm not sure what that means, but I'll take a general. You'd rather be a general than a corporal, right, Coach?
True.
Tazza says, Larry, almost everybody agrees he's very good and playing great. Just because you're not willing to call him elite or compare him to Hall of Famers, that does not make them a hater. Samir says,
I agree with that.
I do too. Samir says, but popularity is a reflection of the audience and not the content creator. Your most popular 3 videos, Jesse Naylor, are all about Lance. Okay. But popularity is a reflection of the audience, not the content creator. Yes, absolutely. But the point is that when Lance was a topic of conversation, I wasn't up here talking to the chagrin of Gammon. He'll tell you, we weren't up here talking about offensive linemen. We were talking about Trey Lance and Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo. Why did we do that? Because you guys wanted it, and we knew that would grow the platforms. Now, what we're not doing, and I want to make sure that we're clear about this, what we are not doing is making things up. We are giving our true opinion on the topic, but the topic is what you guys dictate it is. So what I'm saying, Samir, is that we have a guy who struck while the iron was hot, knowing Brock Purdy's a hot commodity, started a whole channel based off of it, and has built his platform. That's all I'm saying. So what I'm basically talking Brock Purdy is good for business. Good or bad, it's good for business. Just like when Lance was here, being a 49er quarterback, talking good or bad about Lance was good for business. There are people that built a platform talking bad about him. There are people that built a platform talking good about him. So all I'm saying is it's good for business to talk about the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. It always has been, and it always will be, period.
Let me say this, Jesse. For those of you out there who are supporters like I am, all right, I am a supporter too. It's not like I get on camera and then all of a sudden I get like this uppity ass position of I don't watch anybody else. When I get off these shows, I watch everybody. I watch Jesse, I watch Larry, I watch Grant, I watch David, I watch everybody.
Damon Bruce.
I do not watch David.
You said everybody, damn it.
How do you bring that up, you fucking cocksucker? Okay. So all I'm saying is
Ed Talks Paul.
Is that
go, Coach.
There's another side of this. Okay. And I know that I'm reactionary and Coach is wild and all this other stupid shit.
Aaron Camperman.
There's another side of this. And the other side of this is the profitability side of choosing what you want to talk about based off of what the fans are paying attention to. And as viewers, you need to understand that there are a lot of dishonest brokers who just want to talk about Brock simply because they know you will click. You will listen. When we were going to off season, what are we struggling with now? Running the ball, stopping the run. Larry, how many times was I talking about that during the season? During the beginning of the season? Larry, we even had a show about it when you argued with me up and down. Coach, why you care about
I've never heard you talking about it. No, I'm just
You've never heard me talking about running the ball, stopping the run.
He's
Larry,
joking.
don't do that on
joking.
camera.
I'm joking.
Okay. I'm about to say, don't do that on camera. So, Larry, we've talked about that tons of times. Stopping the ball and stopping the run. We've talked about it. But how sexy was that topic during the offseason, during the summer?
I had people who were threatening me with all kinds of terrible stuff just because I predicted that the 49ers were going to recommit to Brock and trade Trey Lance.
Yeah.
I mean, literally claiming that I was like one of the world's worst human beings because I made
the conversation was not about the football team during the summer. The conversation was about the quarterback.
Yeah.
That was the conversation. And even if you spoke anything about the team that was not about that goddamn quarterback position or that competition, you were getting no views, no traction, and nobody gave a fuck. So we talk about what you guys give a fuck about. Simply put.
Right.
Okay.
Head coach and quarterback a lot.
Come on. So when people talk about why are you always talking about the quarterback position? Because when I talk about the fact that the offensive line is ass and we may not be able to run the ball, you get 200 views. When you talk about how maybe Coach Wilkes is going to have a little bit of a bump to get over and have some growing processes to get through to the secondary, nobody watches. Everybody cares about the quarterback situation.
Yeah.
So it's kind of rich that you get your outliers who like to sit back from the followers. And you know what's hilarious is that trollers, people who don't want to follow the program, trollers, they're just content creators who are too pussy to get a camera. That's all they are. People who have the balls to say something wild through the comments are too pussy to get a camera and to put their name, their face, and their likeness behind their little small comments. That's what it is, man. That's just the truth. So the next time you push why we are following certain narratives, look at the views, man. Look at who's following what we're talking about. I'd love to talk about the offensive line. That'd be an all-day conversation. I'd love to talk about the secondary. That would be an all-day conversation. But y'all don't care about that shit. Y'all don't.
You're right about that. You're right. Flav says, who's been over big?
I don't know.
I don't know either. He's struggling for viewers, right? I don't know who that is.
Maybe he's on right now, opposite us.
I don't know.
How dare he go on opposite us?
Matt says, Jesse, hurry up and go pee-pee. I'm trying. Pterodome says, Brock Purdy is doing all this with the 21st ranked offensive line as if he doesn't have 5 all-pros around him. There you go, Pterodome. S. Dot says, funny family, laugh out loud. I'm a man, bro. Oh, okay. Oh, he's going back. Remember, he was the one. He's the one that I said, hey, thanks, bro. Or girl, or you, or whatever. So he's letting us know. He's a man.
And he's 40.
And I'm a man. I'm 40. Flav says, BS. I was huge on Jimmy compared to Trey. Flav. Either own it or don't, but don't say what it wasn't because we all know what it was.
Flav said the dogs for us, by the way.
Holland Trey says 100. Nobody really knows is like fantasy football. I don't know what this comment's going back to. I apologize. Samir says, when did this become Creators Anonymous? I'm Larry Krueger and I liked Hyde.
I feel like I should hold a candle. I'm Larry Krueger, and I one time thought Kentwan Balmer was good.
That's good.
And I have a problem.
Flav says, BS. I said he was better than Dallas's third string quarterback. I always said he was around 11 to 15. Just Trey wasn't top 40. Okay. That's not the way I remember it, but sure. Mr. Blue Magic says, and I lead the Larry taking Brock over Herbert. And I lead.
And I lead? What does that mean?
We're letting that die.
Maybe he leads the
We're
charge.
letting that die.
Yeah.
Bro, I mean, Herbert's off for the year. Larry, your quote, if you really want to take a scumbag take, Herbert. You can hop on top of this right now.
I said it. I'll stand behind it. I just don't think that potential. I don't like potential over production. I like production over potential. I mean, I think more. Lawrence has great potential. Herbert has great potential. Some of these guys have awesome potential. Potential is one thing. Potential gets you fired.
I think watching the Raiders curb stomp them the way that they did is actually a feather in Herbert's cap at this point.
It's way more of a feather than in Justin Herbert's cap. With the way they just got fucking demolished.
That defense used to have Khalil Mack, Derwin James, Joey Bosa, and they give up how many points tonight?
60.
You can't stop shit. Look. football has changed because of the rules.
That's amazing.
It's no longer defense wins championships. It's you got a good enough defense before the offense can finally find a way to score. That's what today's NFL is. If you ain't got an offense, you ain't winning. You're not winning without an offense.
Brother Bob says, right, I'm here because PP is 99% wrong. And I remind him. Sean says, yeah, Flav. Thank you, coach. It's okay, Flav. I hoped for Dexter Carter, but Flav and all of the Jimmy lovers, this is what we are seeing from Brock, is what you saw from Joe and Steve in person that can run a scheme. Okay. He's the one that called out Flav, right? Mm-hmm. I think so. DP says, you said it's okay to encourage people to hot takes on who Purdy will become and then jump all over and talk down on them when they do it. No. Again, we're mincing words. Having a take versus knowing you're right. I said this months ago when I had this conversation with Larry. I had a take that we'll take Brock Purdy out of it. I had a take that who's the quarter? CJ Stroud would be a very good quarterback in this league and the best quarterback out of this draft class. Right now, that take looks awesome, but I don't know for sure that I'm right about that take, and we will find out in a few years. That's all I'm saying. Have a take, stand by the take. Don't have the hubris to then say that you're right after 16 games. That's not the way that this works. It's just not. Mr. Blue Magic says, you said it before this, Larry. I'll post it on X.
Said what?
Probably the Alex Smith thing.
Over it.
The Alex Smith thing, I think.
Mr. Blue Magic, go for it. I don't know. I don't know what else to say.
Larry said what?
Just go for it. Do what you got to do, bro.
Do what you want.
Gammon says before the show, who decides to be the heel? See this? Nobody, Gammon. Nobody. We don't have those conversations. We are just who we are. Brother Bob says, Nails, you're gonna get a UTI holding your piss. Oh my gosh. He's doctor now. Now he's a doctor. I've pissed 3 times during the show. You're good, Nails.
What you need is that the stadium pal.
Yeah.
What's that?
You hook it up. It's like a catheter. You hook it up to yourself. You never have to go to the bathroom. You just sit there.
Let me look this up.
The stadium.
Larry, and Coach, maybe you remember this too. Remember during the steroid baseball era, the Whizzinator became like the most popular topic of conversation for a while.
Dick?
Yeah, the Whizzinator.
Yeah.
That's
who was the Vikings running back who got busted in the airport with the Whizzinator?
I forget who was it.
Hold on.
Somebody with an O in their name, wasn't it?
I don't remember who it was.
It was a running back named with a name with an O. I forget.
For
something
the Vikings.
Wilson, maybe?
Hold on. Whizzinator, Vikings running back, Ontario Raymond, Lloyd Smith.
There it is.
Who was it? Who was the Whizzinator?
Ontario Raymond Lloyd Smith.
I knew there was an O in there. The Whizzinator.
Coach losing it's making me laugh. Killa Mig says Eagles haven't beaten the Seahawks in 15 years.
Go Seahawks. If the
Seahawks
win that game, the Niners can lose to the Ravens on Christmas.
Yeah,
that would be nice. It would be.
Well,
hey,
hold on.
Wait a second. This,
you know what's crazy to me is how is he using the Whizzinator? Did he use a brown Whizzinator? He probably got caught using the peach Whizzinator.
The Whizzinator.
Imagine getting caught with a white dick.
The show's off the rails.
Did he get caught with a white dick?
3 hours and 13 minutes in, the show is officially off the goddamn rails.
It's 1:10 a.m. for us. All right, let us go. All right, gee, gosh,
Where the hell is Vish when you need him?
Oh my God.
Yo, that's nuts.
Larry, what were you asking?
I was just going to say that I was talking about
Oh
Seattle.
no, Dallas has
If
to lose
Seattle beats, yeah, Dallas would have to lose too. But if Seattle beats Philly, the 49ers are in a much better spot, aren't they? Or not necessarily. Because Dallas is 10-3.
Man.
Dallas is 10-3 too. Now they come into the mix. That's right.
S. Here we go. Trey Lance is a game changer. Okay, Jesse, go take your piss, bro. Got you covered. Okay. The funny thing is I don't ever remember being that definite about Trey Lance. I remember saying that I think he could be a franchise quarterback. He has all the talent in the world, and I want to see that through. And I think that he will be that. But to call him a game changer after not playing, I don't know that I would have said that, but maybe I did. But listen, you guys keep tally on all the stuff that we say and don't say. So you probably know better than me. But go find me that comment from 10 months ago or whatever. I'll gladly watch it and say you were right. Matt
Trey Lance is not a game changer. He only played 4 games. Like, this is what I have to admit about Trey. I love the prospect of what Trey Lance could be for our team.
Ditto.
But the facts is that we just never saw it to fruition. We never saw it through.
Thank you.
So there's no like, there's nothing there.
It's a TBD situation. In fairness to everybody, it's TBD.
Larry, it's not even know TBD, what he is yet. Larry.
Well, you just said it. You basically just said we don't know what he is yet, and I agree with that.
But,
we don't know what he is
like,
yet.
As far as we're concerned, how was it TBD for us when we got Brock?
No. Like, but I'm saying,
how can we be giving a fuck what
forget the
Trey
Niners
is when we got Brock?
Forget the Niners. It's just Trey Lance is to be determined. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
No, he's not.
You don't. Well, you cannot believe. I still believe in him. I really do.
Think that the NFL is all about opportunity and timing, and that kid missed his window. There's no way that kid gets on the field after 3 years of not playing a game. Fucking 4 years starts, and he's going to be taken seriously in the league. That's not the NFL.
We'll see. I hear what you're saying.
But you do know what am I sounding ridiculous? You do know what I'm saying, though.
You're saying he likely never gets a chance. I think that's a fair thing to think.
I know what you're saying.
He likely never really gets a shot now that he's been shipped.
It would be almost an unprecedented road, but he's kind of an unprecedented prospect. That's all I'll say.
Matt says, I'm a comment creator. There you go. Flav says, I said Purdy was the best quarterback on the team in his first preseason. Me and Larry, we have receipts. Sorry about it. Well, I said 2 years before he was drafted, he was a third-round talent and could start in this league. So I'm the rightist, Flav. Golly. You love Jimmy Garoppolo. Don't act like you didn't. Dominic says, seems like Nick Wright is making a career off of trashing Purdy and the Niners this year. His segments are some of the most useless takes in journalism. Nick Wright was well established before this year in Brock Purdy. So...
But he is kind of, he's kind of the contrarian. He's kind of built, forget Purdy, because it's not about Purdy, but he's a strong take Jake kind of a guy who's just going to sit there. Everybody says A, he says B, everybody says B, he says C. I mean, I get it. He's made a name for himself. We'll see. I'm not a big fan.
Yeah. I think he's great, but that's just me. I don't agree with every take, but I like what he does.
You think he's entertaining is what you're saying.
Hell yeah, he's entertaining. Yeah. He's very entertaining. Bro, you can't listen. He says my takes are in one or two camps, either right or will be eventually right. Like, come on, man. He's messing with you. And you guys take it hook, line, and sinker every time, Nick Wright. You guys take it hook, line, and
Fox guy.
And sinker. You're mad about it, paying at him, and he's happy. Brian says, are any of you making sure Vish can watch the Niner games?
I'm pretty sure Vish will not.
My thing just kind of froze on me.
Vish cannot stay away from the Niners. He's watching all of the games. I know that for sure.
Really?
Yeah, Vish is watching the game.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Vish has been texting me. Me and him were texting back and forth during the last game. He's watching the game.
Okay.
Juan says, can't say this is our year because I'm afraid to sound like a Cowboy fan. Fair.
That's such a
Samir
shame that that's
says-
true.
Samir says, "Dang it, coach! I got my 2-year-old." Oh God, I think my internet's going, guys. I don't know what's going on.
You're getting a little laggy.
You can make it.
I know my internet's going. Holland says, "I'll send y'all some." All right.
Yo, they going hard tonight. They going hard tonight.
It's a hell of a show.
Flav
It's a hell of a
says I was
show, bro.
high. Flav says I was high on Jimmy, but Jess wasn't that high on Lance. That's the way that I remember it, Jess. But Jess wasn't
That's
that
not the way
high
I
on.
remember it.
I never said I wasn't that high on Lance. I said that I thought Lance was going to be a franchise quarterback eventually. That was my take on Lance. But at no point did I crown him and say he was those things.
Mm-hmm.
You see the difference? Like, why is this so hard to understand? Am I speaking fucking French up here when I say these things? Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Am I off my rocker? Like, is there a clear distinction from having a take and knowing when your take is right? Like, I don't understand why this is so hard to believe.
That's
for people.
that's why I say it's a TBD, because
Oh,
we don't
Lee.
really have a definitive answer yet, in my
I
opinion.
swear. See, bro, I started distracting topic like you go to the bathroom. Jesse, you weren't supposed to engage. I had you covered. All right, fair enough, S-Dot. Fair enough. John says, Flav, you wanted Sam Darnold to actually play. It was anybody but Trey, was his take. Juan says, one injury to Dak and Lance gets his chance. Flav says, who gets another shot first, Cap or Trey? Cap is never going to get a shot in this league.
Yo, Flav is in his
full.
bag right now.
Green glass full. I got to be honest. I can't stand you. I'm not reading your comments on my show. At Chisari again over Trey. Okay, there we go. All right, y'all. Listen, I got to go pee, and it's super late. I'm gonna go.
You still got 2 up.
Internet's
there. You got
lagging.
3 up. There.
Love y'all. Thank you so much. I can't get to them. I can't, bro. I can't. Can you? Will you read them for me? I can't get to them.
To us anyway.
All right, here we call them up and I'll read them.
I know. I got it. No, listen. My internet's going for real. Read them. Yeah.
Okay. Luis R says, "Man, you guys are still live. Love you, fellas." Juan Mendoza
says, "I remember Jesse talking about Purdy long ago."
And
Dominic hung.
Dominic Honk says, aside from Ayuk and Chase, what are the biggest contract decisions the Niners have this offseason? That's next week.
Wow,
it's so funny you asked that, Dominic. That's why you need to tune in next week, because next week that's what our
big question, Dominic. Because there is another contract that nobody's paying attention to. That's big, but Jesse's got to drain his bladder. So
cliffhanger.
We're gonna
cliffhanger.
Wizinator away.
Wizinator.